Guys can stay tuned and check out our Facebook and YouTube page and learn more Krav Maga tips and lessons. Thank you.
ILTV News, your source for Israel in English. Reporting from the ground where it happens, as it happens. An authentic, trusted voice in daily Israel news. Airing on 11 international TV channels and now launching a 24/7 Israeli news channel. Reaching millions every month across all social platforms. Independent, real, powered by truth. We don't just report, we connect. Thanks to a worldwide community that stands for truth. This is ILTV, your source for Israel in English.
Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Alec Pollard coming to you live from Israel with the biggest stories in the region. Reports from the U.S. indicate that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have agreed to a 2-month deadline for Hamas to disarm. That includes practical criteria on what disarmament means, and according to the report, one of those is the destruction of Hamas's extensive tunnel network underneath the Strip. In remarks given alongside Netanyahu on Monday night in Mar-a-Lago, Trump threatened Hamas will have hell to pay if it does not disarm within a very short period. Israel is pushing back against Turkey's growing role in regional affairs from Gaza to the Horn of Africa. Jerusalem has now asked the Trump administration to exclude Turkey from a new international stabilization force that will help shape the future of Gaza and to keep President Recep Tayyip Erdogan off the Board of Peace, a new international forum expected to oversee the next phase of the Gaza peace plan. At the same time, tensions between Israel and Turkey are rising on another front. Standing with the leader of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, Erdogan strongly condemned Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland, claimed as part of Somalia, as an independent state, calling the move illegal and accusing Israel of trying to destabilize the Horn of Africa and undermine Somalia's territorial integrity. Israel has announced it will suspend and bar the operations of multiple international humanitarian organizations in Gaza starting tomorrow, January 1st, 2026. The new regulatory rules are intended to prevent terrorist exploitation of aid channels. This after dozens of groups failed to meet updated requirements to submit detailed information on staff, funding, and operations, conditions Israel says are necessary to safeguard humanitarian activities from abuse by terrorist elements. Among those affected by the new measures are Doctors Without Borders, CARE International, the Norwegian Refugee Camps Council, Oxfam, and divisions of major charities such as Caritas, all of which will lose their permits to operate in Gaza and the West Bank if they do not comply. Israel says these organizations made up a small fraction, roughly 15% of those working in the Strip, and that aid will continue uninterrupted through registered groups, United Nations, donor states, and other permitted agencies. And now to discuss these matters, we're joined by Yigal Dilmoni, who's the founder and board member of AFJS, the American Friends of Judea and Samaria, and an expert in Israeli outreach, and also Professor Gerald Steinberg of NGO Monitor. Thank you, both of you, for coming here to share your expertise with us. I want to play to you. Let's listen to Netanyahu's remarks on Phase 2 in Gaza in his interview with Fox News. Take a listen.
What has been so hard about getting to Phase 2, which is of this peace plan, the Hamas disarmament, getting an international stabilization force on the ground in Gaza?
Well, one word, disarmament. Hamas committed to disarm. It's got still about 20,000 people with basically Kalashnikov rifles, which they use periodically to execute anyone who doesn't want the continuation of their tyranny. So they kill a lot of Palestinians who don't want them. And they have altogether 60,000 AK rifles. That's what disarmament means. You got to take all these rifles, take them away from them, and break up those terror tunnels that they have, still hundreds of kilometers of terror tunnels. Hamas refuses to do it.
Do you think you'll get there? Do you think you'll get to phase two, even though there's this unwillingness by Hamas to disarm?
Look, I think we have to give it a chance. There's an attempt to bring an international force. So far, it hasn't come to fruition, but we'll give it a chance because if it can be done, again, as the president and I have said, if it can be done the easy way, fine. And if not, it'll be done another way.
So we heard Prime Minister Netanyahu there. Gerald, I'll start with you. What do you make of the current situation in Gaza and the prospects of Hamas disarming in 2 months, as apparently Netanyahu and Trump agreed?
Well, I'm not going to take the 2-month deadline too seriously. It's not public. You said apparently it's reportedly. And I doubt that Netanyahu or anybody in the Israeli government who knows the situation on the ground takes that too seriously. But the fact that the issues are very much at the center of the agenda, not just the United States, but also internationally. All those countries that want to be involved and keep pushing for peace and say, well, we got to do something to rebuild Gaza, help the Palestinians. The issue is about disarmament. The issue is fulfilling the requirement to move to phase two, not just the rifles that Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned, but also the whatever missiles and rockets they have, or they might be able to reconstruct. When we talk about aid, that's an important part of that. How did they get the materials to build 30,000 rockets? And then the tunnels. The tunnels have been largely neglected, both in the media discussions and in the more, I'd say, governmental discussions. But those are essential. That is the infrastructure that Hamas built since it took over Gaza in 2007. All those tunnels underground is what makes the fighting so very difficult in Gaza. Those have to be destroyed. And Israel has to go in, somebody has to go in and do them, and nobody else is going to do them. The fact that Mr. Netanyahu has put that firmly on the top of the international agenda is extremely important, and I think makes the big difference. If there's going to be a phase two, that's got to be the essential part of it.
Right. Yigal, about those tunnels, you were a reserve soldier in Gaza. You saw a bit on the ground what's going on there. How good a job or not good a job did the IDF do in trying to dismantle those tunnels, and how big of a threat do they pose?
Yes, first I've been in Gaza and in Lebanon at the last 2 years, more than 400 days. I'm officer, I'm commander of a unit in the paratroopers brigade. So I saw that tunnel in my eyes. Almost every second house have a shaft and tunnels that get inside the house. And the IDF destroyed slowly the houses and we find the shaft and we blow up the tunnels. We make it slowly because we didn't want to maybe to hurt and the hostages, but it's not enough. I think probably maybe 50 or 60% of the tunnels that built at the last 1 year, we destroyed that, and we need to do it more. And I think what Netanyahu done yesterday together with Donald Trump, he put the truth that if the Hamas will not disarm, it's not mean that Israel is weak, it means that United States is weak. Because if the Hamas will not do exactly what they signed up at the agreement together with United States and together with Donald Trump, it means that America cannot deal with small terror organization in the Middle East, and it will reflect all other terror organizations around the world and on all the Middle East, and also Iran and Hezbollah and at the north. And I think it became to be not only the problem of Israel to disarm Hamas, it became to be the problem of United States. And if I can add other things, our organization, we are focusing to educate people about Judea and Samaria, and just last month, I've been in Dallas, in Texas, in 2 large conferences with legislators, and I hear from hundreds of people that tell me that they feel that they are, right now what's happened in United States, it's the same thing that happened in Europe just before 20 years. And when Israel is fighting against the radical Islam in Gaza, in Hamas, and when we need to destroy the Hamas terror organization, it's the same thing that they have to do in America against the radical Islamic groups that try to change America. They're not coming to America to integrate together with the people in America. They're coming to change it. And Israel and America, we have the same enemies. It's called the radical Islam. And that's why Trump and Netanyahu seeking together the same things, how to destroy that terror groups in the Middle East.
I want to go over another issue that we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, which is the NGOs. Many of those NGOs are sort of hijacked by terrorist elements or used in various nefarious ways. This new basically banning of several NGOs that didn't comply with the registration criteria that Israel put out. Gerald, NGO Monitor, that's your organization that has been monitoring this for many, many years. What do you make of this latest move by Israel? Is it justified? Does it actually work? Will it be beneficial for Israel? Because there's also going to be, let's say, a PR backlash for a move like this.
There already is a political and PR backlash. It's been in preparation for months, and there are very strong reasons for doing this activity. It is a wake-up call for the entire, what we really call the NGO industry, which has done so much damage. Let's take a couple seconds to look at the background. The NGOs were very much part of the Hamas infrastructure since at least 10, 15 years, maybe going back to 2007. Organizations like Medicine Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders in English, and CARE, and all the other organizations. Norwegian Refugee Council is a major one. They have multi-million, in some cases, billions of dollars of annual budgets. They're very powerful, and they are political actors. Yeah, they bring in some food and some assistance to Gaza, but what they're really doing is shaping the political dialogue, the political discussion, the way Israel's portrayed. So when you have doctors that are sent by Doctors Without Borders to Gaza, or that are volunteers for them, Palestinians who are very much part of the Palestinian, they call it advocacy, but it's really propaganda, demonization of Israel, that say Israel's responsible for bombing hospitals, Israel killed children, we saw the terrible casualties, and we say it's because Israel, and they're making all of this up. The fact that they speak for an organization like Doctors Without Borders, or they speak for Oxfam and all these organizations, is a major, major source. It's the eighth front source of demonization, anti-Semitism.
So isn't that also really the issue of the fact that these organizations, they need stringers on the ground who know the territory. They need these Gazans on the ground to basically help them to gather information and so forth. And those people on the ground are not reliable. And that's sort of what Israel's been trying to do with this process.
They also provide aid. I think you said 12 to 15%, which is not a huge amount, but they do provide aid as part of the Palestinian dependence, which keeps them as refugees and creates Palestinian victimhood, but they siphon off of them. The entire aid framework, and particularly NGOs in the UN, are the sources for the materials that are used to make all those tunnels and to make the missiles and to pay the salaries and to keep the Hamas war machine going. And these NGOs have acted consistently in a very, very irresponsible and unaccountable way. You're absolutely right. In order to function, they need to have people on the ground. They need to vet those people. And all of these organizations we now have from documents that were written by and prepared by Hamas and captured by the IDF. Yigal may have been one of the people involved in capturing them. Some of them have made public. We've analyzed them. And they had individuals, what they called guarantors, placed inside Norwegian Refugee Council, placed inside Oxfam, placed inside Doctors Without Borders, and working with Hamas to coordinate the policies taken by these so-called NGOs in their distribution of aid. And that's why the aid got siphoned off into terrorist activities. All that has to change. That's too long an introduction, but it's very important because it's the background for the policies that have been adopted as of tomorrow morning by the ministry that is responsible for allowing these organizations into regulation, to giving them visas. Yes, the organizations are screaming because they don't want to be regulated. They failed. They were part of the Hamas overall operation, and they don't want to be told you can't do that anymore, because then they're going to have to severely change their operational means and stop the cooperation. We know it from Gaza, but we also see it in other parts of the world. It's irresponsible hundreds of millions of dollars and euros and pounds and Norwegian krona are sent to areas controlled by terrorists like Hamas, or in the areas of Central Africa controlled by other terrorist organizations. And unless those responsible for distributing aid, the governments that provide the money, the NGOs that are often involved in distributing them, act responsibly, are accountable, and go through and check that none of their people are connected to Hamas, of course Israel has to stop allowing them to operate in there. Any normal government faced with what Israel is facing would do the same. So I think the protests that are being made are very, very ill-informed. And it's sad to see governments automatically simply repeating the slogans of these irresponsible NGOs instead of investigating where their money goes. It goes for the UK, it goes for Norway, it goes for France, it goes for the European Union.
Yep. Of course, also those NGOs in various, or let's say organizations, are also working in Europe, in the United States, as Yigal mentioned earlier, basically providing cover for a lot of nefarious goals of Islamic organizations. Let's move on to another big issue, which is Iran.
If I
Prime
can
Minister.
add something,
Yes.
I want to add the story that I saw it in my eyes because I've been in Gaza, and when we get inside UNRWA school, we find inside books. It was a schools of girls that there was inside a book that teach the children how to build explosive device. That was the books that teach in the class. So and everyone saw the videos that the UNRWA workers was involved in the massacres of October 7. So they can't say that they're not involved in terror. When I met them in Gaza, that guys that working with all that organization, NGO organization, I called them a terrorist with a tie. That's what they're working with suit and ties, but they are together with the Hamas and they're against Israel. They never help our hostages. They didn't give them medic, and they need help our hostages. They only help to the Hamas, and at their schools, they teach the children to kill Jewish and kill Israelis. So they can't say that they're not involved.
Right. Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's in the United States, he had that press conference with Donald Trump, and also in the interview with Fox News, we heard before what he said about Gaza Phase 2. Let's hear what he had to say about Iranian efforts to rearm and to restart the nuclear program.
It's trying to, and the president was correct when he said that, the Fordo thing was obliterated, so they're trying other sites. They'll try that. They also are trying to recover their ballistic missile production facility. It's not, we set them back considerably on both areas, but yeah, they'll try. And I think the president was right to tell them, hey, don't. That's basically what his message was. And I think with Iran, the real issue is they should accept the fact that they shouldn't have nuclear enrichment capability. They should take out all the material that they've already enriched, take it out of Iran, and have inspections.
Judging by the president, Iran's president over the weekend said that his country is in, quote, full-scale war with the U.S., Israel, and Europe. What do you think the chances are, if you were to put a percentage on it, that Israel, or the U.S. is going to have to take some action again inside Iran?
Well, I'll tell you about action because I was presented a few days ago, actually 2 weeks ago, with the prospect that they're having field exercises in which they're practicing launching ballistic missiles at Israel. So I passed the message. I think I made it public, so it's not secret. I said, if you dare do that, the results would be devastating.
So your thoughts, both of you, on the situation with Iran. Yigal, starting with you. What do you make of Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments there?
I want to tell you that I watched at the press conference together with Netanyahu and Trump, and I be a little bit scared because when Trump spoke about Iran and he didn't tell them only don't do it. He told them that if they will rebuild their nuclear bases and things, he will act against them. And he didn't say it like that, but what I hear in his voice that he will attack Iran again, and maybe he will do it with the B-15, B-52, or it's looked to me that maybe he told them, I will attack you with nuclear weapon. I don't. He didn't say that, but it was very, very strong, and it's a little bit scared me. But I think it's very good for us that all the regimes that surround us around Israel in the Middle East will understand that United States and Israel is a small country but very, very, very strong military forces, and we use the jets that America build, and we use it very good, and we help to America to improve and make it better. And I think all the regimes that surround us here, that Netanyahu I think it's the sixth visit at the last year at the White House or in the meeting with Trump. I think that all our enemy will have to be very, very clearly understand that they can't try to think to attack Israel. And I think I think what Trump said yesterday, it's very, very helpful to scare all our enemy.
Gerald, what do you make of the whole Iran situation, especially that there's a lot of discontent in the Republican Party about the possibility of getting embroiled in war with Iran?
Well, I want to say, first of all, I don't read the public statements that we heard from Trump on Iran in quite the same apocalyptic terms as Yigal. I don't think that he had any intention of talking about or hinting at anything beyond a repeat of what we saw back in June. And it was a stern warning. And certainly for Trump, I don't think that some criticism in the Republican Party is going to make a whole lot of difference. I think there are other issues that are going on there. But Trump's legacy, very important, he says it very frequently, has to be, one of the things is that they destroyed the Iranian nuclear capability. And that was a very major action. And Iran, if it does try to rebuild it, I think Trump is very serious about doing the same thing again and doing it again whenever it has to be done. Another concern for Israel is rebuilding restocking their ballistic missiles. We all went into shelters. There were a number of Israelis who were killed. A lot of damage was done, not catastrophic. Iran suffered a lot more. They were defeated. But we don't want Iran and the leadership there, which seems to be quite out of touch with reality, both in terms of their relationship in the region and also in terms of their internal issues. So perhaps we're seeing the end of the Iranian regime. It might take a few more months or a few more years. It's very hard to predict. But I think that's an issue the Iranians have to take into account. Do they want another confrontation? Do they want to see more damage done? And what will be the impact on the future of the regime if they push the envelope? I don't predict how the Iranian government, the regime, will respond, but those are very clear statements from both President Trump and then Prime Minister Netanyahu on the limitations. Iran is really in very deep trouble. Whether the leadership understands that or not is unclear. Whether they believe their own propaganda, which we've seen before in history since 1948 of Arab leaders believing their own propaganda, particularly in Egypt.
Yeah.
If the Iranian leadership thinks that it came out of the war okay, or even won the war, and that Israel was grievously harmed, they're going to be in for a big surprise. And that's the danger. The danger is of the Iranian regime really misreading the cards that they have and thinking they have more power than they do. We'll see what happens.
Well, we've seen that internal unrest with the protests going on there, which is something that is recurring, that the population is discontented with their situation. I want to ask a final question regarding Judea and Samaria. Trump was asked about that in the press conference and he kind of deflected. And then we heard Netanyahu in the interview also with Fox News asked about violence of Jewish extremists in Judea and Samaria. And he said that they're a small group, not representative, but there's certainly that group is causing damage to Israel in its relations with the U.S., in its public image. Yigal, what do you make? You saw the interview. I assume you saw that section of the interview as well. What do you make of Netanyahu's response to that accusation?
I think Netanyahu responds very good because, look, there are criminals in Tel Aviv, and no one say that the people in Tel Aviv are criminals, okay? Because we have some criminals even in New York or in Bnei Brak. We have
But these are
criminals.
ideologically motivated criminals. It's not someone who goes
Yeah,
and
but
robs a shop. They're doing it out of a
it's
certain
not
ideology,
ideological.
which does have a presence in that area.
Yeah, it's people cover it with ideologic, but the people that do such things are very, very small groups that do it, and we call the Shabak and we call the police to investigate it and take that people and throw them out from Judea and Samaria and put them on jail. But they are small minority people that doing such things, and we saw and we see a huge campaign against the people in Judea and Samaria that call the settlers violent, that want to put all the people that living in Judea and Samaria, more than 500,000 people like me, people like my family, people that serve in the army, that people, officer in the IDF, and put them together with criminals. And no one do such a things to the people that living in Tel Aviv or the people that living in other area when they have some criminals inside their group. And that campaign, led by big money from Qatar, we know that, led by big money from Qatar and other left organization that try to fight against the policy of Israel in Judea and Samaria to build communities and bring 1 million people to live in Judea and Samaria. They try to fight against it when they try to put all the people, more than 500,000, together with that criminal.
But there is a problem here. There is a
just
problem
a minute.
that needs to be addressed. And the problem is that the violence that people see all over the world on their screens is real. And there is not enough being taken. The Israeli government, the Israeli security forces are not investing the resources that are necessary to prevent this. And the world sees that and they interpret it. It makes it easier for all these NGOs that are talking about settler violence to say, you see, here are examples of that. Here are innocent Palestinians getting hurt, in some cases getting killed. Here are cars being burned. Here there's violence. So it is, I think, that President Trump tried to put this higher up on the agenda of the prime minister, and I think it's also necessary for Israeli society. What's called settler violence or hilltop youth or whatever it is that takes place in what is really a lawless area of Judea and Samaria needs to be addressed seriously. It cannot be allowed to continue.
But
or
Joe,
the legitimate citizens in Judea and Samaria will be the ones who will be hurt most by this.
Gerald, we have in the police department that in charge about Judea and Samaria, we have a big department that in charge about that. There are no other area with that kind of department that in charge only to try to find that people. And I tell you, all the leaders, all the mayors, and I've been the CEO of Yesha Council, and I work at Yesha Council 15 years. Every time that we know that we have a criminals, we spoke against that, and we asked the police to investigate that people and take them. It's so minority. It's so minority. But yeah, but I know they put it all over the news because that is campaign. Took small things and put it like this is the big things that happen in the ground.
It easier for the campaigners.
True. But it also, if I will make campaign that say there are criminals in Tel Aviv, and we have the Tel Aviv criminals. This is all people of Tel Aviv, and I took small issues that happened in Tel Aviv and put it all over the screen, all over the media. And your organization, Gerald, you searching, you following the money, from that where it's coming, and you can't say that,
gentlemen,
this is the truth. It's not the reality.
We'll discuss this privately.
But it's not the reality here in Judea and Samaria. It's not the reality.
Gentlemen, it's a serious subject that can be explored further. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So I want to thank both of you for coming on, addressing these issues. Yigal Dilmoni and Gerald Steinberg, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Your dream apartment in the holiest city in the world is just a click away. Am Yisrael Chai, the lifeline for so many chesed operations in Israel, is holding their annual Dream Raffle, where one ticket only can buy you a luxurious apartment in the heart of Jerusalem. Don't win the apartment? No problem! All raffle proceeds from all tickets go directly to one of the incredible organizations that Am Yisrael Chai supports. And for the first time ever, the apartment is fully furnished. Don't miss this incredible opportunity to actively donate to Israel's functionality and, on the way, potentially score big and win the apartment of a lifetime. Scan the QR code now to join.
And we finish with a bit of positive news here in Israel, less pain at the pumps. From tomorrow, the price of gas is dropping below 7 shekels per liter for the first time in 4 years. Israel's Fuel and Gas Administration announced that from the first day of the new year, the price of self-service 95-octane gasoline will fall to 6.85 shekels per liter, which is down a quarter of a shekel from last month. So there you go. Less price at the gas pump in Israel. Maybe that's something to celebrate for the new year. And Happy New Year to all of you who are watching. Thank you very much for tuning in to ILTV on the Hour. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Welcome to ILTV Insider. I'm Mayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV News. Tonight, we're looking ahead to 2026 and asking the hardest questions about where Israel is headed, what could happen next, and what should happen next. From the prospect of renewed confrontation with Iran to Gaza, Hezbollah, normalization with Saudi Arabia, rising global anti-Semitism, and political turmoil right here at home. Joining me for this New Year's Predictions Roundtable are Mark Regev, former Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom, Olga Deutsch, vice president of NGO Monitor, and Anton Goodman, director of partnerships at Rabbis for Human Rights. 3 very different perspectives, one critical year ahead. So let's start with Iran. As we look toward 2026, are we heading back toward another direct confrontation with Iran, Mark?
I think interesting news out of Iran today is the reports about rioting in the streets, students protesting. And I think it could be a sign for what we could see, I hope to see, and I believe it's quite possible in 2026, which is all authoritarian regimes rely on their ability to oppress and their ability that the population fears them. Because of what happened last year in the 12-day war with the Israeli and American attacks on Iran, has the regime been exposed as being weak? And will give the protest movement a chance to empower them. And if there's regime change in Iran, a real game changer across the region for the better.
And then maybe not a need to attack because we will be safer. Olga, piggybacking on that, what is the real red line with Iran right now? Is it the ballistic missiles as we heard in the Trump-Netanyahu meeting, or is it the nuclear threats? What is your understanding?
Well, I think it's both, because the nuclear proliferation is a longer-term threat, that if we see that they crossed again a threshold, that we will have to act. But ballistic missiles are an immediate threat. And given everything that we have experienced in the last 2 years, I don't think that Israel has a choice. And I am quite sure, especially given the statement last night from the joint press conference and from Florida with President Trump, that U.S. will see this eye to eye with Israel, because I think that they do understand that it goes beyond Israel. It is a sponsor of most terror in the region.
So if that is the case, then if Israel does need to act, if we don't have a regime change in Iran, as Mark alluded to, then would Israel need to act alone, or do you believe that the United States, like it partnered with us during the 12-day war, would they partner with us again, or will there be other regional players, Olga?
Well, I think it will, just like in the last 2 years, it will be a multifaceted cooperation, which will be the perfect litmus paper of potential regional further cooperations. I do think that we will see more Abraham Accords type of alliances in the region. And I think attacks against Iran or defense against different Iranian proxies are the best way to see different countries that might not see eye to eye on different issues join forces on something that they all commonly see as an existential threat.
I think that's the most important piece of news that came out of the Netanyahu-Trump press conference in Florida. Because up until then, Trump had said, we won't allow the Iranians to build a nuclear weapon and we'll attack them if they try to move forward. He said that in his Knesset speech. But he never spoke about ballistic missiles as a reason. And now, for the first time, official American policy, if they move forward on their ballistic missile program, we have the right to respond. And I think that's an important change.
I think it's a very important change, especially for Israelis who lived through the 12-day war and saw the impact of those ballistic missiles. And I want to turn to you, Anselm, for a minute and move us over to the south, over to Gaza. Trump suggested moving to phase 2 of the ceasefire, but he did make clear that Hamas would need to be disarmed. How does that realistically happen this year? Who is actually going to disarm Hamas? We know it's not going to be the International Stabilization Force.
I think the most important question when we're looking at Gaza or overall the Israeli-Palestinian situation is the standard of living and the human rights of Palestinians. Hamas has been strengthening itself in Gaza because it still remains the power broker. The money is flowing through it, and it remains a strong governance there. The important issue for the Palestinian people is having a basic level of human rights and having a hope for their future. This is not something that I believe that Hamas can provide to them. And so the question is, how do we destabilize Hamas through providing some of the needs of the Palestinian, rather than just talking about disarming a terrorist organization?
Although we know that that hasn't been working. An NGO Monitor recently revealed a report, if I have that correct, where we were actually able to show that funding was going to a clandestine organization that was then funneling it to Hamas. So who is going to do it? Or is it, if it's not going to be the international community, Olga?
Well, you're 100% right, Maya. We basically unearthed hundreds of pages of original Hamas documents, and I cannot stress this enough. It's not me saying, it's in their own words, in Hamas words. It shows how they completely, fully instrumentalized aid, international humanitarian aid structures and organizations, and almost used them as puppets, right, for their strategic military and political goals. And I actually agree with you that unless there is a serious long-term strategic program of de-radicalization, which is coupled to actually granting Palestinians an access to real human rights, as opposed to, you know, everything being a question of occupation or no occupation, because it's almost an apologetic. It's not treating them as adults. Like, let's fight for the real access to human rights and not blaming Israel on everything. I don't think we will see much of a change.
So, Mark, then what is going to happen when we talk about phase 2? Is the IDF ever realistically going to pull out, or is 2026 another year of war in Gaza?
So, unfortunately, it might be. Hamas has to demilitarize. It's clear Hamas doesn't want to demilitarize. What terrorist group voluntarily gives up its weapons? And I think Hamas's model is the Hezbollah model in Lebanon. They're willing maybe to agree to the establishment of some technocratic government, Palestinian government in Gaza, but they want to be the power behind the scenes, being the only people with guns, and they can kill anyone who speaks out against them, like Hezbollah used to do in Lebanon before we took out Hezbollah. And so I would say the solution is the following, because there is a solution. First of all, there could be a military solution. Israel might have to go back and fight the war. To avoid that, and I think President Trump sort of hinted at this yesterday, the same combination of forces that got us the ceasefire in mid-October, which was Israeli military pressure supported by the United States, not like the previous administration, which all the time tried to put the brakes on Israel, but strong diplomatic support from America for Israel to do the military pressure. And at the same time, Hamas's best friends in the Sunni Arab world, Turkey and Qatar, putting pressure on them to agree. If we can reestablish that coalition again, maybe Hamas will disarm. I believe there's a chance, once again, if their closest friends in the Arab and Muslim world, in the Sunni world, put pressure on them to do what they need to do, what they committed to do under the agreement, maybe it can happen diplomatically, but it's quite possible. There'll have to be Israeli military pressure to push them over the top.
And assuming that we continue that war, then we're going to have also an issue going on in the north. You mentioned Lebanon, you mentioned Hezbollah, and obviously we've been waiting for an entire year since the ceasefire was signed on November 27th of last year to be able to disarm Hezbollah. Lebanon has said they're getting closer, but we know the reality is that we are no closer to disarming them, despite what the government says. So does Israel have to return to Lebanon as well, Mark? Are we going to be back fighting there beyond the airstrikes and the targeted attempts that are happening now, could we have a ground invasion again?
I think, first of all, all-out ground invasion, I'm not sure, but I think we have to keep up the military pressure. First of all, tactical reasons, because when we take out a Hezbollah military target, that's good. That keeps Israelis safer. That's good, actually, for the Lebanese, too, to keep the pressure on Hezbollah. But ultimately, there's a strategic value to Israeli strikes because we're putting pressure on the Lebanese government to do something which they've committed to do and they've so far haven't done, which is to disarm Hezbollah. Now, it's hard for them to do. Everyone knows it's hard. If it was easy for them to do, they would have done it already. But by applying the military pressure on Hezbollah and Lebanon continuing to be a war zone, partial war zone, not a total war zone, but a partial war zone, very difficult for the Lebanese, putting pressure on the government to do the right thing. That's what the Americans want. That's what the Sunni moderate Arabs want to happen. Let's see what happens.
Can you respond?
Well, I'm disappointed to hear continually in this country that war and military responses are the first thing that people go to. There's a lack of imagination. There's a lack of thinking around this. We've been trapped within military conflicts. And I think that it's rather glib as well to suggest, it's good when we hit a target, because we've seen so many innocent people who have been killed throughout these conflicts. And I think it's about time that we start to develop. Israel is a very advanced and intelligent country, but when it comes to diplomatic relations in our region, it seems like we reach for the gun and the bomb before we even start thinking about other approaches. We have numerous ways in which we can approach the country and the countries and the regions around us. The Abraham Accords provides for us a good base of support for that. But I have to say, even within the Abraham Accords, if you speak to the Emiratis and the Saudis over the last 2 years, they're more and more saying Israel is a bad actor, is a dangerous player in this field, is using military options too quickly. And the collateral damage of ordinary people's lives should not be brushed off the table. It should be the primary thing that we're looking at.
So, Anton, when we talk about potential collaboration or stabilization, not even normalization, but collaboration with Lebanon or Syria, do you believe that that's just a pipe dream, that that's never going to happen because of our mentality here in Israel?
Absolutely not. I mean, Israel, Lebanon and Syria together is Sham. That's an original region within this part of the world. And we have shared interests, whether those be resources, water, solar, gas. We have shared interest with families that cross those different borders and populations that are shared. You can see if the conflict in Syria directly affects Druze Israelis because they have family who are living within that area as well. We need to start to build partnerships and alliances and look for mutual wins together. Pragmatic alliances of anti-extremists who are looking to make life better for everyone in the region. I believe that can go somewhere.
Olga, can it go somewhere?
Well, I commend you on your, I would think, a rather naive perspective. I think that we live in a very tricky area of the world. And I think the flaw that we make, the mistake that we always make, is we think that the other side comes from the same place as us. We all grew up in democratic societies. And then when we come up with a solution together with our partners in the US and Europe, we take it from our own, how we judge a situation. But that is not what is happening on the other side. I was just in Berlin last week, where I spoke on UNRWA and the challenges, and in the audience sat a boy, he's not a boy, he's 32, but, and said, I'm a graduate of an UNRWA school in Gaza, because he left Gaza. And I asked him, Hamza, what does an average Gazan person know about Israel? What do they know about anti-Semitism? And he said, zero. He said, we are taught in schools way before anti-Zionist narratives, we're taught to hate Jews as a religious mantra. Jews should not be trusted. And then he says, the first time I learned something about anti-Semitism was actually when I reached Berlin. And this is our challenge. Now, this is not to say that we should not promote alliances, partnerships, absolutely win-win. We have a vested interest, all of us in the region, to look into resources. But we have to stop, and this is the change in paradigm that has to happen. We have to stop treating them as kids. When they say we want to kill you, we should trust them. When they say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, we should trust them. And then to our partners around the world, when they say, like the Europeans, that they're in favor of a two-state solution, we have to insist that a two-state solution is not only Palestinian state. It has to be a recognition, not only by the Europeans, but by the Palestinians and Lebanese and Syrians,
Olga,
that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish homeland.
Olga, I'd like to call you on your initial approach to this, which sounds a little bit 1990s clash of civilizations, as if there's us and them, and here we are in the, the liberal Western democracy of Israel. In the last couple of years, we are suffering from an unhinged and extremist government, which is taking a policy which has caused absolute destruction to people's lives, not just people in the region, people within Israel as well. And this approach of saying, well, you know, there's the Western approach, and then there's a slightly, you know, a slightly racist overtone to the Arabs. You can't trust them, and they're brought up with these hatreds. Look at the polling within Israeli society. Look at the radicalization within our society. When we talk about anti-radicalization, we need to talk about not just Palestinian society, not just Lebanese society. We need to talk about Israeli society as well. We have a problem here.
I want Mark to be able to respond to that comment and to move us toward Saudi normalization and that.
I'll do that as you request, Mayan.
Thank you.
I think it's an artificial dichotomy. I know it's very popular that, you know, when Israel shoots at some terrorists to take them out, it's bad for peace. It antagonizes people. I believe the contrary is true. I think the Arab peace partners and the possibility of a breakthrough in the expansion of the Abraham Accords and with the Saudis and the Indonesians and others, and now we've got, what is it called, Somaliland and so forth, it's a function of Israeli strength. The bottom line is this: no one is going to make peace with a weak Israel. People make peace with a strong Israel because they want Israel because we're strong economically, we're strong technologically, and we're strong militarily. And what's the truth? When you close the door and you turn off the television cameras and you ask people across the Gulf and in Saudi Arabia and in the moderate Muslim Sunni states, do they want Hamas to win in Gaza? And what do they say?
No.
They say no. Do they want Hezbollah to be disarmed in Lebanon? Yes. Do they want Hamas no longer to run Gaza? They're on our side. Now, they have trouble saying it publicly, but when you close the door and speak to them, Israeli victory in Gaza, Israeli victory in Lebanon, which means Hezbollah gets disarmed, which is also a victory for the Lebanese people, that's good for peace. And I believe anyone in Europe who today talks about we've got to push for a two-state solution, it's like hitting your head against a brick wall. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Where is the opportunity for peace? What can be done in 2026? The expansion of the Abraham Accords. And that will be done. If the first round of the Abraham Accords was under Trump and Netanyahu, I think the second one can happen under them. I'm not saying it's a for sure thing. But if you put your effort in a two-state solution, you're wasting your effort. Put your effort where something can actually happen, and that's breakthroughs with Arab and Muslim countries. That's quite possible.
So taking that model forward, you know, of course, if we would move forward with some pathway to Palestinian state, that is the criteria for Saudi Arabia to make some kind of normalization with Israel. Now, the pathway is undefined. We don't know what it needs to look like. It wasn't enough what Trump did with the 20-point plan, as we saw at the United Nations Security Council, but there could be another way for us to move that forward. Do you think that Israel, therefore, will have to give up the idea of sovereignty in Judea and Samaria in order to achieve that normalization? There was this belief that perhaps also under Trump and Netanyahu, you would see annexation or sovereignty happen there. What do you think about that?
So we gave up sovereignty, the idea of sovereignty, once when we made the first Abraham Accords. I think we could do it again. It's clear Trump doesn't want sovereignty, and the whole point of sovereignty was to do it if you could get American support and international legitimacy. I think it's a card that Israel can play again. If we played it in the past, we can play it again. I think, yes, and I'll say this, the way the Israeli public is at the moment is, you know, people have very little trust or confidence in the Palestinians, right? People saw Hamas in Gaza and they saw a Palestinian Authority on the West Bank that couldn't even condemn the 7th of October, right? There's very little trust, very little trust. So the ability of any Israeli government to make concessions towards the Palestinians today is very, very difficult. But to make concessions to get a deal with Saudi Arabia, to get a deal with Indonesia, you can play with Palestinian currency, and that can ultimately be good for the Palestinians, because maybe they can get something. Once again, if you ask the Israelis today, I have to agree to a pathway to a Palestinian statehood, most Israelis say they can go jump in the lake, they don't deserve it. But for a deal with Saudi Arabia, I think the Israeli public would be willing to play that.
The idea of Israeli sovereignty in the West Bank at this stage is just a recipe for never-ending conflict and for bloodshed. And if you think that Israel is shooting at terrorists, you need to come to the West Bank and see what's happening on the ground, because this is not shooting at terrorists. This is demolishing innocent people's homes, enabling and supporting settler violence, extremist settler violence across the West Bank, which is harming individual communities' lives on a daily basis and pushing us towards a security situation which is totally untenable. And so the question of bringing sovereignty to the West Bank, which as it goes at the moment, there's de facto annexation taking place in the West Bank today at the hands of settler militia who are exiling Palestinian communities against the wishes of the army, against the Supreme Court of Israel. It is out of our hands. The government is enabling this to take place. So the idea of sovereignty that's being taken, going through the stages of legislation in the Knesset at the moment through the annexation laws, is highly irresponsible and will lead us to bloodshed. And a much better idea Instead of saying, oh, the Saudis need us to get round to the table. No, the Palestinians and the Israelis, if we need to have security and a way to live together, we need to get around a peace process table again once and start talking about a two-state solution.
Can I respond very quickly?
Please.
I would urge people of that opinion to go to the Sharon area, which is the communities on the Green Line to the east of Netanya. And if you look at the communities there, they're sort of middle class, upper middle class, Ashkenazi Jews, usually voting for parties of the center, left, right? And they live by the fence there. And you ask them today, do they want a Palestinian state or Palestinian independence on the other side of that border? And they all think 7th of October in our community. And I think until you can ask those questions, those people are much more happier today that there are settlements in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, that there's a Jewish presence there, because otherwise they'll have Palestinians on their borders, and they saw what happened to the communities in Gaza. And until people on the left in Israel can answer those questions to those people, you'll have a problem.
An outpouring of Palestinian violence is much more likely today under the current circumstances of extremist settler violence and dispossession in the West Bank. Getting around a process table and empowering the Palestinian
Convince
Authority.
the Israeli public.
I want to stop the conversation about the Judea and Samaria for a moment to take us. We only have a few minutes left, and I do want to think about another area where we've had a tremendous amount of violence and what it's going to look like in 2026. And I'm going to take us outside of Israel to the diaspora. Banzai Beach terrorist attack in Australia just a week ago, a week or so ago. Anti-Semitism is surging all across the United States, Europe, and everywhere else. Does the narrative ever shift back in Israel's favor in 2026 when the war, God willing, maybe it does continues, maybe it ends, but gets a little bit on a lower key? Does the train go back in the station, or has it left and we are done? Olga responds.
We haven't seen the worst of it. And I've been saying this for 2 years, and I'm sorry to have been right. And I'm sorry to say that this trend will sadly continue. I actually think that there is a direct line, and not the one that you would assume, right, between what is going on here and the surge of Jew hatred. It's not just anti-Semitism. It doesn't do it justice anymore. It is Jew violence that might be inspired in certain cases and instances by what goes on here, but that is not the core of it. I think that the quieter it gets here, and we've been seeing this since the return of the hostages and the ceasefire, the more violent the narrative around the world will become, because they will need more of a campaign against us, and they will need to increase their narrative. I think it's a political vehicle of trying to continue to punish Israel and to seek a political campaign to vilify Israel and the legitimacy of what we're trying to do. And unless we see it for what it is, which is not just a surge of sporadic lone wolves, and I've heard the reports from the Australian government, which definitely does not have a success track record, right, in the last couple of years of ramping anti-Semitism, that these were secluded activists. They were not secluded because they live in an environment that they are fed hatred, normalization of Jew hatred, and normalization of calls for violence, right? And these are not against Israel or the Zionists. These are against local Jews. And I think that is the challenge that we will have to address both here at home and around the world, sadly.
And we're going to have to, unfortunately, wrap up. So, Mark, final sentiments. Take us into 2026 in 30 seconds or less. What is the main issue that's going to keep you up at night as we go into the next calendar year?
So I don't think Iran wants a problem with the United States, so hopefully that will stabilize. We have to see forward movement in Lebanon. We want to see Hezbollah disarmed. Possibility of a security agreement, some sort of agreement with Syria. I think that's on the cards, and that could have a positive effect on Lebanon too, because if Syria makes a security agreement with us, they can't make full peace because we won't give up the Golan Heights. But they can make a security agreement. Maybe we can have a security agreement then with Lebanon too, because the Lebanese are the small partner. They can. And we have to make sure that Hamas cannot use a ceasefire in Gaza just to rearm, and then we're back to square one. They're the challenges I'm focused on.
Those are definitely a number of challenges, way too many maybe for Israel to tackle, and definitely for us to tackle tonight, because unfortunately we are out of time. I really want to thank all of you for being here, Mark, Olga, and Anton. Of course, if you found this discussion valuable, please check out the ILTV podcast for a series of in-depth interviews on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ayan Hoffman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
And moving on, a delegation of American healthcare leaders traveled to Israel to witness something extraordinary, a healing nation. Organized by Israel Bonds, the mission took doctors inside Israel's hospitals, trauma units, and medical schools, revealing how care, innovation, and hope continue despite the challenges. Here's their story.
Last month, a group of healthcare leaders traveled to Israel on a delegation organized by Israel Bonds. They came to see firsthand Israel's medical institutions in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks and to see how the country, even through war, continued to care for its citizens and even advance world-class medical practices.
This is my second delegation that I've led for Israel Bonds since October 7th. There was more hope than devastation this time.
The delegation visited some of the nation's most prominent medical centers, including Sheba and Soroka hospitals. There, delegates saw the country's trauma units in action, treating soldiers and civilians under extraordinary conditions. Their trip also showed the social side of Israel's story. Attendees volunteered at Leket Israel and visited Beit HaLochem, where injured veterans train, recover, and rebuild their lives.
Seeing the strength, seeing the bravery, seeing the belief in the Jewish people, the belief in the state of Israel from their young people, and their willingness to pay the ultimate sacrifice, their willingness to do what they have to do to keep their parents alive, to keep this country alive, has been very meaningful.
The delegates visited Israel's top medical schools to see how the next generation of physicians and researchers are being trained. Despite recent challenges, students and faculty alike remain optimistic and focused on shaping the future of global healthcare. It's a future that Israel Bonds wants to be a part of. Buying Israel Bonds is a way to both invest and support Israel.
Israel Bonds has been there for Israel. It's been the way for the Americans to be there for Israel since almost the beginning of the State of Israel.
By virtue of our purchase of Israel Bonds, we are showing that we are investing in Israel's growth as they take on their role as one of the greatest innovators in the world.
After some intense days on the ground, attendees returned home inspired. They left with a stronger connection to Israel and a deeper understanding of how Israel Bonds supports the country.
This past year, Israeli diplomacy unfolded on two parallel tracks. Israel expanded ties, opened new embassies, and strengthened regional cooperation, while at the same time facing mounting diplomatic pressure over Gaza and the Palestinian issue. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman takes a look at Israel's diplomatic year.
In January 2025, Israel opened the year with a fragile but notable diplomatic breakthrough. A multi-phase ceasefire and hostage exchange with Hamas, brokered by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, led to the return of living hostages and the bodies of others. The European Union described the deal as a major diplomatic accomplishment, even though repeated violations eventually caused it to collapse. Despite the ongoing war, Israel's regional partnerships proved resilient. The Abraham Accords marked their 5th anniversary in September, with no partner country suspending ties. Trade with the UAE continued to grow. Defense cooperation deepened, and Israel's integration into U.S. Central Command enabled unprecedented operational coordination with Arab militaries, including some states that still lack formal diplomatic relations with the country. That cooperation was tested in June during a 12-day direct confrontation with Iran. Following Operation Rising Lion, Israel and the United States coordinated closely on both military and diplomatic fronts. President Trump helped broker a bilateral ceasefire, reinforcing U.S.-Israel alignment and renewing discussion about future regional normalization. Economic diplomacy was another central pillar of the year. Israel signed a record $35 billion natural gas deal with Egypt, anchoring energy security at the heart of regional relations. Azerbaijan's state oil company finalized the purchase of a 10% stake in Israel's Tamar gas field, signaling deeper strategic cooperation. Just this month, Israel took a dramatic diplomatic step by becoming the first country to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent state. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced plans for immediate cooperation in agriculture, health, technology, and the economy, a move criticized by Somalia and some other international actors. Israel also expanded its diplomatic footprint. In 2025, it opened new embassies in Zambia, Estonia, and Moldova. In September, Fiji opened an embassy in Jerusalem, underscoring its consistent support for Israel at the United Nations. Looking ahead to 2026, Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has approved additional embassies in Fiji, in La Paz, Bolivia, and in an African country yet to be announced. At the same time, Israel faced growing isolation at the United Nations, where 142 countries backed a French-Saudi initiative for Palestinian statehood over Israeli objections. Still, Israeli officials are quietly exploring future strategic cooperation with Syria and Lebanon, and hope that if ceasefires hold and a credible pathway toward Palestinian peace emerges, Saudi Arabia could eventually join the Abraham Accords.
ILTV News, your source for Israel in English. Reporting from the ground where it happens, as it happens. An authentic, trusted voice in daily Israel news. Airing on 11 international TV channels and now launching a 24/7 Israeli news channel. Reaching millions every month across all social platforms. Independent, real, powered by truth. We don't just report, we connect, thanks to a worldwide community that stands for truth. This is ILTV, your source for Israel in English.
Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Alec Pollard coming to you live from Israel with the top stories in the region. Reports from the U.S. indicate that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have agreed to a 2-month deadline for Hamas to disarm in Gaza. They agreed on practical criteria for what disarmament means, and according to the report, one of those is the destruction of Hamas's extensive tunnel network underneath the Strip. In remarks given alongside Netanyahu on Monday night in Mar-a-Lago, Trump threatened Hamas will have hell to pay if they do not disarm within a very short period. Asked about Phase 2 of the ceasefire, Netanyahu said this to Fox News.
What has been so hard about getting to Phase 2, which is of this peace plan, the Hamas disarmament, getting an international stabilization force on the ground in Gaza?
Well, one word, disarmament. Hamas committed to disarm. It's got still about 20,000 people with basically Kalashnikov rifles, which they use periodically to execute anyone who doesn't want the continuation of their tyranny. So they kill a lot of Palestinians who don't want them. And they have altogether 60,000 AK rifles. That's what disarmament means. Got to take all these rifles, take them away from them, and break up those terror tunnels that they have. Still hundreds of kilometers of terror tunnels. Hamas refuses to do it.
Do you think you'll get there? Do you think you'll get to Phase 2, even though there's this unwillingness by Hamas to disarm?
Look, I think we have to give it a chance. There's an attempt to bring an international force. So far, it hasn't come to fruition, but we'll give it a chance because if it can be done, again, as the President and I have said, if it can be done the easy way, fine. And if not, it'll be done another way.
Coming in.
Meanwhile, Israel is pushing back against Turkey's growing role in regional affairs, from Gaza to the Horn of Africa. Jerusalem asked the Trump administration to exclude Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan from a new international stabilization force that will help shape the future of Gaza, and to keep Turkey off the board of peace, a new international forum expected to oversee the next phase of the Gaza peace plan. At the same time, tensions between Israel and Turkey are rising on another front. Standing with the leader of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, Erdogan strongly condemned Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland to the north of Somalia as an independent state, calling the move illegal and accusing Israel of trying to destabilize the Horn of Africa and undermine Somalia's territorial integrity.
Somaliland'i tanıma kararı gayrimeşrudur ve kabul edilemez. Elinde 71 bin Filistinli kardeşimizin kanı olan Netanyahu hükümeti Gazze, Lübnan, Yemen, İran, Katar ve Suriye'ye yönelik saldırılarının ardından şimdi de Afrika boynuzunu istikrarsızlığa sürükleme gayretindedir.
In our discussion today, we strongly rejected Prime Minister Netanyahu's illegal aggression in recognizing part of Somalia, northern regions, as an independent state. This aggression and the blatant meddling constitute a clear violation of the international law, the Charter of the United Nations, the Constitutive Act of the African Union, and all established diplomatic norms.
And we finish with some positive news, less pain at the pumps. From tomorrow, the price of gas in Israel is dropping below 7 shekels per liter for the first time in 4 years. Israel's Fuel and Gas Administration announced that from the first day of the new year, the price of self-service 95-octane gasoline will fall to 6.85 shekels per liter, which is down a quarter of a shekel from last month. Officials say the 11% reductions result from international gas prices, reduced demand, and a slight weakening of the US dollar, although gas is still not cheap in Israel, amounting to $7.19 per gallon. And that is all for ILTV News on the Hour. Thank you very much for tuning in, and stay updated throughout the day on our news channel.
Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up in today's newscast, President Trump hosts Prime Minister Netanyahu for highly productive talks on Iran, Gaza, and Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu announces President Trump will receive the prestigious Israel Prize. Tens of thousands of Iranians pour into the streets protesting against the regime over economic woes and calling for regime change. U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met last night for a high-stakes summit at Mar-a-Lago, with both leaders calling the talks highly productive and strategic. The meeting focused on regional security, the war in Gaza, and the future expansion of the Abraham Accords, as Washington and Jerusalem signaled tight coordination at a critical moment for the Middle East. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Key discussions between the two leaders ranged from Gaza Phase 2 to the Lebanon ceasefire, to relations with Syria, to the potential new round of fighting with Iran. Public commentary also included another appeal from Trump for President Herzog to pardon Netanyahu. On his Gaza peace plan, Trump reiterated that Hamas will have a very short period to disarm, warned of severe consequences if they fail, and stressed that many other countries will act if necessary.
Well, we talked about Hamas and we talked about disarmament. And they're going to be given a very short period of time to disarm. And we'll see how that works out. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be in charge of that from our side. But if they don't disarm, as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for them. And we don't want that. We're not looking for that. But they have to disarm within a fairly short period of time.
Trump gave Israel full backing while saying the ceasefire must be given a chance.
Well, I'm not concerned about anything that Israel's doing. I'm concerned about what other people are doing or maybe aren't doing. But I'm not concerned. They've lived up to the plan. They're strong. They're solid. And sometimes they don't understand when somebody violates something that you want to give him a second chance. Well, we'll give him a couple of second chances. But no, Israel's lived up to the plan 100%.
Trump said he was checking Iran's recent actions very closely and issued a stern warning.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup.
After what you know from the intelligence, how close are we to another war with Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that, but Iran may be behaving badly. It hasn't been confirmed, but if it's confirmed, look, they know the consequences. Consequences will be very powerful.
Turning to Lebanon, Trump appeared to confirm Beirut's difficulties to disarm Hezbollah, but did not mention the end-of-the-year deadline as called for in the U.S.-brokered ceasefire.
Well, we're going to see about that. We'll see about it. The Lebanese government is at a little bit of a disadvantage, if you think of it, with Hezbollah. But Hezbollah has been behaving badly, so we'll see what happens.
Answering a journalist's question, Trump indicated that President Herzog may soon give Netanyahu a pardon in his corruption trial.
A pardon? I think he will. How do you not? He's a wartime prime minister who's a hero. How do you not give a pardon?
Just ahead of the Mar-a-Lago summit, U.S. President Donald Trump was informed that he had been awarded the Israel Prize, Israel's top civilian honor for his special contribution to the Jewish people. Education Minister Yoav Kish informed Trump during a phone call. Trump thanked Kish and said he would consider attending the Independence Day ceremony in Israel to receive the award. Netanyahu explained that since Trump has broken so many conventions, Israel decided to as well, to award the Israel Prize to a non-Israeli. Netanyahu said it would honor us, Mr. President, if you could visit Israel on Israel's Independence Day.
Well, President Trump has broken so many conventions to the surprise of people, and then they figure out, oh, well, maybe, he was right after all. So we decided to break a convention too, or create a new one, and that is to award the Israel Prize, which in almost our 80 years, we've never awarded it to a non-Israeli, and we're going to award it this year to President Trump. This was announced formally over lunch by our Minister of Education, who's responsible for the Israel Prize. It's going to be awarded to President Donald J. Trump for his tremendous contributions to Israel and the Jewish people.
Well, now joining us from Mar-a-Lago to break down some of what we're seeing at this historic summit is Alex Trayman, the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of JNS. Alex, thanks for joining us today. I'd love to start by getting your thoughts on President Trump's comments regarding phase 2 of the Gaza deal. From afar, it certainly seems more positive than some anticipated for Israel, given the problematic challenge of Hamas flatly refusing to disarm, no?
Absolutely. I think what was really clear here is that the daylight between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu on the three key areas, Gaza, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, really doesn't exist, that these two are lockstep. And people had been reporting that President Trump was going to push Netanyahu for a withdrawal of IDF forces from parts of Gaza in order to see the beginning of a rebuilding. But very clear from President Trump's statements that nothing to that effect is going to happen until Hamas disarms, also creating essentially a timeline between the two leaders where they will give Hamas the opportunity to disarm. They might give international forces the opportunity to disarm. But ultimately, if that doesn't work, that the green light will be given for the IDF to go and fully disarm Hamas.
Now, if Israel is forced to act to disarm Hamas further, what kind of support could Israel expect to see from the United States, or is it too soon to say?
I think it is a little soon to say, but the support is diplomatic support. Israel doesn't really need military support to take out Hamas in the Gaza Strip. What they need is the diplomatic backing, because ultimately the international community is going to be very upset if there is a return to hostilities. It's the United States that can turn around and say, listen, there was a deal in place. It was a 20-point plan. Phase 2 calls for Hamas to be disarmed. Israel has lived up to its obligations, as the president said, and left really the IDF with U.S. backing no choice but to go in to finish the job.
Now, one of the goals of Prime Minister Netanyahu with this visit was U.S. assurances on Iran. Now, we heard Trump yesterday state this. Take a look.
Will you support an attack, Israeli attack on Iran, if Iran will not have a deal if Iran will continue with their ballistic missiles and also nuclear weapons?
If they will continue with the missiles, yes. The nuclear, fast.
Now, do you think that a second round with the Islamic Republic is imminent, and will we see U.S. involvement?
Well, it's hard to predict. Certainly, what changed here is that the president said it's not only the nuclear sites that are problematic and would require a military response, but also the buildup of ballistic missile capacities. That seems to be like a new moving of the goalposts, so to speak. But I think what we've seen is that Iran is trying to rebuild their ballistic missile capacity. The president alluded to it. He said that they're going to be checking the intelligence, that they've heard that the Iranians are rebuilding their ballistic missile capacity. And I do think, yes, that if Iran doesn't agree to a deal that's verifiable, as the president alluded to, he said he warned them to take a deal that first time. If they don't do it now, I do think that there's a strong possibility that there could be a renewed element of attacks. And also, I think it's very important to note that this comes within the context, Emily, as you have reported, about protests inside Iran. And I think that this time around, there could be a greater emphasis on trying to destabilize the regime in Iran and to return the Islamic Republic back over to the Iranian people.
Well, we did hear some comments from President Trump about regime change, not, of course, supporting that explicitly, but stating that if there was to be a smooth transition, it wouldn't be something that he's opposed to. I want to circle back to Gaza just for a minute, because it's one of the key sticking points between Israel and the U.S. that we've seen, and that is that international coalition that is supposedly going to be overseeing Gaza, at least in the short term, and may or may not have any role in disarming Hamas. What do we know thus far? We saw in this summit that Trump made comments about several dozen countries that were prepared to join this force. This is the first that we're hearing about some of these countries, and of course, we've also heard a lot of opposition from Israel when it comes to Qatari forces, possibly Turkish forces. What progress has been made on that front, if any?
Well, I think that you're right that the main sticking point here is Turkey. Of all of the countries, and Turkey very aggressive in its desire to put troops inside Gaza, and that's a red line for Israel. It's problematic because as one of the questions was given to President Trump, the President Erdogan of Turkey is referred to Netanyahu and Israel as Nazis, and meanwhile President Trump refers to Erdogan as an ally. It remains to be seen who is willing to put troops on the ground. Marco Rubio had said just about 10 days ago that he didn't know yet what would be the full mandate of the International Stabilization Force, whether they would take on the role of actually disarming Hamas. And right now, I think that the overall view is that the only force that can disarm Hamas ultimately is the IDF.
All right, well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for joining us, as always, Alex Trayman from JNS.
Thanks for having me.
3 million Israelis are dealing with trauma since October 7th. To help Israelis heal, Hadassah is there, with the largest rehabilitation center in Jerusalem, world-renowned medical centers, and youth villages. It's said, saving a life saves the world. Imagine helping millions. This is Hadassah, a life-changing force in Israel and the world.
Well, what began as an economic crisis in Iran has quickly evolved into a nationwide political uprising, with Iranians openly calling for the end of the Islamic Republic. Let's take a look at the latest.
Protests that broke out 2 days ago in Iran have continued to expand across the country, spreading from markets to streets, universities, and industrial sectors, as public anger over a collapsing economy gives way to far broader demands for regime change. The immediate trigger was the free fall of the toman, with the dollar surging to around 139,000 tomans. Astronomical inflation has erased purchasing power, and basic goods have become unaffordable. Years of money printing corruption and regime mismanagement, combined with depleted foreign currency reserves, have left the economy in free fall. Amid the turmoil, Central Bank Governor Mohammad Reza Farzin resigned, a move widely seen as an admission of failure. He was replaced by Abdul Nasser Hemati, a former central bank head with a track record of economic failure. Hemati was brought back in a panicked attempt to signal stability without a plan to halt inflation or restore confidence. Protests and strikes have been reported in Tehran, including the Grand Bazaar and major commercial districts, as well as in Mashhad, Isfahan, Shiraz, Hamadan, Zanjan, and parts of Khuzestan. Industries including transportation, wholesale markets, and energy-related services have joined the strikes, and universities have also joined the demonstrations. Across these protests, chants have been loud and unambiguous. Death to the dictator. Long live the Shah. These are not isolated economic grievances, but open calls for the end of the Islamic Republic and a rejection of decades of theocratic rule and economic incompetence. Adding to the momentum, a rare and striking message was published by the alleged Mossad Farsi account, calling on Iranians to take to the streets and assuring them that we are with you on the ground. The regime has responded with force and fear. 16 provinces will be shut down officially tomorrow due to electricity shortages and gas pressure risks, while an extremely heavy security presence has already been deployed across the country. There are also initial reports of clashes with IRGC forces on the ground. Riot police, armored vehicles, and plainclothes agents have flooded protest areas as the regime tries to contain a movement that continues to grow. All of this is taking place as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets with U.S. President Donald Trump, where Trump has publicly expressed support for Israeli strikes on Iran's ballistic missile program, and if necessary, its nuclear infrastructure. While the protests may have been triggered by economic collapse, what is unfolding now is far broader. A national outpouring of anger over decades of misrule, corruption, and repression, and a growing unmistakable demand for regime change.
IDF troops have discovered a Hamas tunnel near the Gaza border after heavy rain and flooding caused the ground to collapse, exposing the site. Golani Brigade soldiers identified the tunnel after rain-induced landslides shifted the terrain, revealing an underground passage previously undetected. The tunnel was located approximately 800 meters from the border near Kibbutz Kesufim and is entirely within Israel's side of the Yellow Line, according to security sources. The discovery comes as the IDF continues efforts to locate and destroy tunnels between the border fence and the Yellow Line. The military has reinforced engineering units in the area, expanded earthworks in the buffer zone, and intensified efforts to demolish underground terror infrastructure. Now turning to the Bondi Beach massacre, where the hero who saved countless people by confronting one of the gunmen says he's only sorry that he couldn't save more. 15 people were murdered and dozens wounded in the Hanukkah attack when father and son Sajid and Naveed Akram targeted the Jewish Hanukkah celebration, opening fire before the rampage was finally stopped. Amid the chaos and the horror, Ahmed al-Ahmed, a local shop owner, dodged between parked cars, tackled one of the attackers from behind, and wrestled the weapon from his hands, an act of extraordinary courage that helped end the bloodshed. He was shot multiple times and left with permanent injuries. Ahmed says he has no regrets.
Were you worried about the second gunman on the footbridge?
No, I didn't worry about anything. I was just, my target was just to take the gun from him and to stop him from killing a human being life and not killing innocent people.
Do you realize that from your actions you saved countless lives that day?
I know I saved lots of people's life, innocent kids and women and oldest and men. And I know I saved lots, but I feel sorry still for the lost.
Hundreds of Israel police officers have carried out a full encirclement of the Bedouin town of Tarabin in the Negev following days of clashes and a series of arson and vandalism incidents targeting nearby Jewish communities. Police say the operation comes after the arrest of several suspects accused of torching property and damaging homes and vehicles during weekend unrest. Authorities describe the acts as revenge attacks linked to rising tensions in the area. Large forces from the Southern District and Border Police took part in the operation. Police confirmed stun grenades were used during searches, and gunfire was reported near a mosque, but stressed there was no suspicion of a terror or security incident. Police said the encirclement was carried out with force and determination, aimed at restoring order, strengthening governance, and sending a clear message that serious criminal activity will not be tolerated. Authorities say operations will continue as needed to maintain public security and full control of the area. Well, thanks to Jewish National Fund USA, a record 90 college students are spending their winter break volunteering across Israel's north and south, restoring communities and strengthening their connection to Israel. Through the Alternative Winter Break program, they're supporting IDF soldiers working in agriculture and honoring fallen heroes. Joining us now from Israel are two of those students, Eyal Lubin and Samantha Levy. Thanks so much for being with us today. To start things off, where are you in Israel right now?
We're in Sderot right now.
And why did you decide to spend your break volunteering in Israel? And what did you expect the experience to be like before you arrived? We'll start with you, Samantha.
My grandparents and parents always ingrained in me the importance of volunteering in Israel and contributing to the community. So I just thought I'd give back and come on the JNF trip.
And Eyal?
Very similar. I've always been intending. I spent a year here in yeshiva on a gap year, and I've always intended on coming back and giving back to the community and being able to volunteer here as much as possible. And thankfully, through JNF, I've been able to do so.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here. Now that you are here in Israel, how does the reality compare to what you had imagined, and how does it feel to see the impact that you're having on the country's north and south communities?
It's really, really amazing. We've started the trip. We went all the way from the north, and now we're making our way down south. And being able to see the impact that we as students have been able to make, giving back to the community, and being able to watch our impact really show its deep causes and deep roots is amazing. And we keep giving back as much as possible, and we keep receiving as much as we're giving.
Now, Samantha, how do you think this experience will influence your Zionist identity and leadership back on campus?
It's taught me to be more proactive and to just really go for it. I think JNF is like the living, breathing proof of that if you think something is like unattainable, it really is.
And Eyal?
Yeah, I mean, I try to do as much as I can on campus for fellow Jewish students, and I think this trip has just really strengthened within me and given me a reinvigorated spirit to return to campus during the next semester and try to bring more energy and more positive enthusiasm about Judaism, about Zionism, about Israel as much as possible.
Well, that's definitely not something to be taken for granted. We know it's not an easy time right now for Jewish students on campus. Now, with several days still left in the program that you're doing now, what are you most excited to experience before you head home? We'll start with you, Eyal.
Okay. I am most excited to return back to my friends and my family, both on campus and off campus, and be able to return and share the experiences that I had on this trip, and be able to tell them that it's important that they too visit and that they too volunteer, that they do what they can to help support Israel, whether it be in Israel or in the diaspora in the United States, and do whatever we can as a Jewish community as a whole to support our brethren wherever we are.
And Samantha, is there something you're specifically looking forward to before you head back to campus?
I'm excited to see the various communities I've seen throughout the years after October 7th occurred and how they have morphed into becoming such a positive environment after such a detrimental thing that occurred. I've, thank God, been here on many trips after October 7th occurred, and every time I just see living, breathing proof that the land of Israel will survive and thrive.
All right, well, we are certainly glad to have you both here. Eyal, Samantha, thank you so much for joining me. I just want to say, in addition to programs like the Alternative Break, Jewish National Fund USA is the largest provider of Israel engagement programs in the U.S., with various travel opportunities to Israel available, both for high school and college students like Eyal and Samantha. To learn more, you can visit jnf.org/education. Well, 2025 saw a sharp drop in immigration to Israel, even as arrivals from Western nations surged. The year also saw a decline in the rate of emigration from the country. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
According to statistics published this week, overall immigration, known in Hebrew as aliyah, declined significantly compared to previous years. The drop comes against the backdrop of war, economic uncertainty, and global turmoil, with many potential olim postponing their move. Immigration officials note that the security situation, especially the war in Gaza and ongoing frontier tensions, has had a chilling effect on potential olim, especially families with young children. Despite the overall decline, Israel experienced a modest increase in immigrants from Western countries, including the United States and France, where Jewish communities have been experiencing rising anti-Semitism and security concerns. The growth from Western countries, however, is seen as important. U.S. and European Jews bring high levels of education, professional expertise, and economic potential, contributing to Israel's technology sector, healthcare, academia, and culture. This trend reflects a complex reality. While global unrest has deterred some from relocating, others are drawn to Israel as a place of belonging and security, particularly Jews in Western societies seeking a future in the Jewish state. As Israel moves into 2026, immigration remains a key factor in the country's demographic, social, and economic future, reflecting not only global trends, but also the state's role as a homeland for the Jewish people. Meanwhile, figures suggest a slowing in the pace of Israeli immigration, offering a note of optimism amid ongoing concerns about a national brain drain. Data presented to the Knesset's Immigration and Absorption Committee shows that more than 125,000 Israelis have left the country since 2022, including 8,400 who formally canceled their residency in 2024, a sharp increase compared with previous years. Lawmakers noted that many of those who left were young professionals and recent immigrants, and stressed the need for policies that address economic pressures, social divisions, and long-term stability.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of 11 degrees Celsius or 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow we should be seeing more cloudy skies and chances of rain, with temperatures at high of 17 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's ILTV_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Good Week Israel, the show where we recap for you some of the positive highlights coming out of Israel from this week. I'm your host, Devo Klein, and coming up on today's show, a holly jolly Christmas straight from the Holy Land. Rachel's tomb gets a massive makeover. And World Emunah, bringing children's dreams to life. Well, Christmas is indeed over, and we are already missing the holiday spirit. So let's have a look at Christmas in the Holy Land, covered and captured by ILTV News. Have a pleasant watch.
Prime Minister Netanyahu delivered a Christmas message from Jerusalem last night. Christians in Israel and around the world are marking the holiday with prayer, services, and celebrations across the Holy Land. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman is in Jerusalem. Mayan?
Well, thank you, Steve. Merry Christmas from the holy city of Jerusalem. Here I am inside the new gate. In just a little while, the Christmas market is going to open and the area will be bursting with people celebrating the holiday. The Christian population of Israel is small, but yet very vibrant. Let's learn a little more. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a Christmas message last night from Jerusalem, sending greetings to Christians in Israel and around the world, and underscoring Israel's commitment to freedom of religion in the Holy Land.
From Jerusalem, I send warm greetings to our Christian friends around the world. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. From here, the Holy Land.
In his message, Netanyahu emphasized Israel's role as a place where Christian life, worship and pilgrimage continue openly and safely.
Israel is the only country in the Middle East where Christians can practice their faith with full rights and in total freedom, where Christian pilgrims are embraced with open arms and are so deeply appreciated, where Christians can celebrate proudly their traditions and openly do so without any fear.
As Christmas is marked across Jerusalem, churches throughout the city are holding special services for Christmas Day. These include Christmas masses at Notre Dame, Holy Eucharist services at the Anglican Church on Nablus Road, celebrations at Christ Church in the Emmanuel Complex, Lutheran services and Christmas organ concerts at the Church of the Redeemer in the Old City, and midnight and daytime services at Dormiton Abbey. Alongside the prayers and liturgies, Christmas markets and seasonal events are adding a festive atmosphere to the city. While major ceremonies are traditionally held in Bethlehem, Jerusalem remains a central hub for Christian worship during the holiday, drawing local believers and pilgrims alike.
While Israel's Christian population is growing, the Christian population in countless areas across the region has been dwindling due to systematic discrimination and oppression.
According to the Central Bureau of Statistics, about 184,000 Christians live in Israel today, making up nearly 2% of the population, with steady growth over the past year. Many live in Jerusalem, Nazareth, and Haifa. As churches ring in Christmas across the Holy City, the message from Jerusalem this year is one of celebration, continuity, and religious freedom in the land where Christianity was born.
Looks like Jerusalem filled with lights for the holidays. Now let's check out Bethlehem, a city often described as the birthplace of Jesus. Have a look.
I'm standing here in Bethlehem right near the very large and festive Christmas tree, a tree that hasn't stood in Bethlehem for the last 2 years since the October 7th Hamas massacre. Effectively, Christmas had been shut down, and this year it is back. This evening we're going to be welcoming the Latin Patriarchate into the city for a procession, choir, songs, and dance. The people of Bethlehem, as I'm speaking to them, are saying what they're most hoping for is that the visitors will come back, the economy will rejuvenate, and life will go back to normal. Bethlehem is preparing to celebrate Christmas again. Tonight, the large Christmas tree in Menger Square will be lit. Choirs will sing and worshipers will gather for evening processions at the Church of the Nativity, marking the city's first full Christmas observance in 2 years. The celebrations were canceled in the past 2 seasons amid war, security concerns, and the collapse of tourism, the backbone of the city's economy. Hotels closed, shops shuttered, and Bethlehem became what local leaders described as a ghost city.
The city was unfortunately a ghost city for the past 2 years, but after what we have done, reigniting the spirit of Christmas, we have reignited hope in the city.
At the Church of the Nativity, priests say the return of Christmas is about more than tradition. It's about survival.
We're still actually gathering around this Christmas tree, and it's actually give the people maybe some happiness, joyful, peaceful. I call the Bethlehem, my people, I call them the living stones. They are the stones of Bethlehem, because the church itself, it means nothing if people, the living stones, are not praying as to keep the church alive.
Yet beneath the celebrations lies a deeper concern. According to data from the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, Bethlehem was 86% Christian in 1950. By 2017, Christians made up just 10% of the city. Many have left due to economic hardship, security fears, and unequal treatment under Palestinian Authority rule.
Merry Christmas for all over the world, from the birthplace. Come to Bethlehem, it's very safe, and come celebrate the Christmas here.
And now take a look at a few words of hope from the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. En route to Bethlehem for Christmas, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, said this year we want a Christmas full of light.
Merry Christmas to all of you. This year we want a Christmas full of light, because this is what we need. After 2 years of darkness, we need light. We know the problems are still on the ground, but we need to turn the page and look forward to open horizon for our future.
Police officers, worshippers, and marching bands filled the square in preparation for the festive day and the arrival of the Patriarch to the Church of the Nativity. The city, revered by Christians as a birthplace of Jesus, had refrained from public Christmas celebrations over the past 2 years as war raged on in Gaza. But as a precious ceasefire in Gaza is still in effect its second month, the city is holding a festive celebration marking the day with marching bands and decorations and the return of worshippers from around the world to mark this year's Christmas from the Holy City. With the large concrete separation barrier right behind him, Pizzaballa delivered an additional message of hope on his way to the Church of the Nativity.
We are living difficult times. The problems are all again on the ground, but I felt also visiting Gaza, visiting our communities, desire of life. A desire to go back to life and to rebuild the life from the scratch. And this is the hope for the future.
And Rachel's tomb, a sacred Jewish site and the burial place of our matriarch, is undergoing renovations set to improve the experience for visiting worshipers. Have a look. The civil administration has announced the start of a major upgrade at Rachel's tomb, one of the Jewish people's most sacred sites. Located just outside of Bethlehem, the site is traditionally believed to be the final resting place of the matriarch Rachel, mother of Joseph and Benjamin, and a figure central to Jewish history and tradition. For centuries, worshippers have made pilgrimages here to pray, light candles, and reflect on her legacy. According to Kogat, the renovation aims to improve both safety and accessibility, following a comprehensive survey that identified infrastructure deficiencies around the entrance and surrounding areas. The first phase includes upgrading the access road, building new traffic roundabout, establishing a dedicated bus bay, and improving pedestrian access and communication infrastructure. A second phase will focus on enhancing the overall appearance of the site, preserving its historic and religious character. For Jewish worshippers, the tomb is not just a historic site, but a living part of faith and tradition. Each year, thousands gather to mark the anniversary of Rachel's death, offering prayers and reflecting on her role as a mother and figure of enduring strength. The renovation is expected to facilitate these visits and ensure that future generations can continue to connect to this crucial symbol of Jewish history. Well, speaking of preserving historic sites, Regavim is protecting the sites in Judea and Samaria, one of the most charged areas in Israel today, but also one of the most significant areas for Jewish history. Take a look.
Judea and Samaria is the biblical heartland of the Jewish people, home to ancient sites, vineyards, farms, and tight-knit communities. Today, more than 500,000 Israelis live here, raising families, working the land, and preserving Jewish heritage in places far older than the modern state of Israel. For many residents, daily life looks nothing like in the headlines.
No, not at all. I love it here. I feel like it's a very out-of-town vibe, a lot of nature with beautiful views, animals. We have donkeys and sheep, and you can see vineyards from everywhere. It's quiet, very slow-paced life, very calm, relaxed. Kids are playing outside all the time. Also very simple. People here are much more simple, much more easygoing, relaxed.
She says the image portrayed abroad feels disconnected from reality.
Sometimes I sit with my friends in the park. I'm like, are we living in the same place? Like, it's a very big dissonance between what you hear on the news and what you see, what you feel like around you.
For families who have lived here for generations, that sense of calm runs deep.
I'm not afraid. I actually more afraid when I'm going out or like travel in the city.
Recent reports have highlighted a surge in so-called settler violence, but Regavim, which tracks land use and security incidents, says the picture is being distorted.
Many of the incidents are actually acts of self-defense. Even the anti-Israel sources admit that there has been an uptick in violence against Jews.
Khan acknowledges that violence exists, but stresses it involves a tiny fringe.
There is violence in the Jewish community. It is an extremely small percentage, and it is an extremely fringe element. The number of incidents of Jewish nationalist crime is minuscule.
She says the narrative itself has become part of a broader political battle. and she called on Israel supporters and Zionists to help Regavim set the record straight.
This is part of a larger effort to delegitimize the Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria.
But for the people who live in the biblical heartland, the message is simpler.
Just want to live. Just want to be happy and calm and raise our kids. That's it.
And now let's have a look at World Emunah and the journey of one Kfir Sabag.
The holiday season is about light breaking through darkness, about hope when things feel uncertain. For World Emunah's Neve Michael Children's Village, that message is lived every single day. Kfir Sabag was just 10 years old when his life changed forever.
I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 21 years ago in 2004. I am 10 years old and my little brother was 7. It was a difficult moment.
After losing their mother and father, Kfir and his younger brother were sent to Neve Michael, an Emunah children's home created to give vulnerable children stability, safety, and a future. For Kfir, it became something even more personal.
I very love this place. It's my home, it's my family.
Neve Michael is part of World Emunah's broader mission, building Israeli society by supporting children who come from broken or unstable homes and giving them the tools to succeed. For Kfir, the impact was life-changing.
I feel loved. These people in this place is my mother and my father, and the Bnot Sherutis was my big sisters.
With the support of Neve Michael, Kfir became the first in his family to graduate from university. He went on to earn a master's degree with honors, serve as an outstanding combat soldier, and build a family of his own. But his story does not end there. Today, Kfir has returned to Neve Michael, not as a child in need, but as a leader and mentor for the next generation.
Every morning I up in my bed and I happy. I talk with the children, I talk with the people in this place, and I say thank you to God.
He now serves as Neve Michael's children's group coordinator, helping children who are walking the same path that he once did.
A lot of people help me, and today I help the other people, the other children, the other teenagers.
For World Emunah, this is what success looks like. Children who grow up, build strong lives, and make sure the next generation never needs the same help that they once did. This holiday, as candles are lit across Israel and around the world, Neve Michael is proof that light does not just flicker, it multiplies. Because when you change one child's life, you help build the future of Israel itself.
And now we had the pleasure of speaking with Rabbi Daniel Rowe of Aish.com to discuss how the organization is locating and combating anti-Semitism worldwide.
And now, as anti-Semitism surges across the West and following the horrific Bondi Beach massacre in Australia, Rabbi Daniel Rowe, senior lecturer at Aish, is here to explain why this is not just a Jewish crisis, but a deeper breakdown threatening Western society itself. Rabbi Rowe, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you.
So we're seeing anti-Semitism surge across the West, throughout the world, in many ways that, people thought was impossible to see after the Holocaust. Now, you've argued that this isn't just a Jewish problem. It's fundamentally changing Western society itself. Can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, when anti-Semitism in general is like this social pathology, like this thing that can just erupt at any moment, where all the world's problems are linked to the Jewish people. And it typically resides, a lot of the movements that drive it are angry with the world and need something that's not real to blame. They don't want to turn inwards and face their own problems, so there's this mythical answer called the Jewish people. And if you look even today, most of the movements driving anti-Semitism have a very deep anti-societal agenda. Uproot the Western world, tear the whole thing down. So that's why it's always a global issue. It's never really a localized issue.
And now you've also written extensively about how anti-Semitism often manifests as anti-Israel sentiment, right? That then spreads to attacks on diaspora Jewry that live, thousands of miles away from Israel and have nothing to do with Israeli policies, but Jews are targeted nonetheless. What does this tell us about sort of the nature of modern day anti-Semitism?
Yes, and modern anti-Semitism is really it's like a virus that's mutated into a new environment. Anti-Semitism, and this is the key point, is never really Jew hatred in the conventional racist bigotry sense. Yes, there's racism and bigotry against Jews as against all minorities, but what makes anti-Semitism unique is this bizarre need to take whatever the collective Jew is and demonize it. And so when the collective Jew was, let's say, they were seen as people living in ghettos, then they're the filth-spreading diseases. When they were moneylenders, they're raping society. When it's about religion, then they're people who've killed Jesus. When it's about secularism, they're the people infiltrating society. So it will always shift. Today, the collective Jew is seen as the state of Israel. So when you have this, and criticism against the state of Israel is fine, so is criticism against individual Jews, but when it's an obsessive need to, in exaggerated language, to really demonize the collective, then you know that the ultimate target is the whole Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've suggested that combating anti-Semitism requires not just refuting sort of this hatred, but actually addressing sort of the underlying, let's call it, brokenness and despair in society, particularly among young men who we see today are being radicalized. It's an unusual approach. Can you explain why you think, healing society's problems is sort of essential to actually fighting anti-Semitism?
Well, I think there's two dimensions to this. One is, yes, the rational, happy human being is not as vulnerable to the virus of anti-Semitism. It's the person angry with the world who, for some reason, locks onto, or society locks onto, it's the Jews. And you can explain it religiously, as a rabbi I would, or you can explain it secularly, and it's not too far apart. It's this, you see, Jews star in every foundational text of the major religions and ideologies that are prevalent in the Western world. To a Christian, we're there in the Old Testament and New Testament. It's all about Jews. To a Muslim, the Quran's all about Jews. To communists, the origin story is linked to the Jews, and it was very linked to anti-Semitism for the word go. So that it's almost like this bizarre obsession with these are the people responsible for everything wrong in the world. It's narrated from the origin books. But the flip side is they should be the ones solving the world's problems. It's a very strange thing. Now, until recently, we've had nothing we could do but pray to God for a better world. And we should still do that. But now, the state of Israel, we're a nation. There's a lot of talent, there's a lot of capability, and we should think about this strategically for the state of Israel. For the cost of a lot less than an F-35, you could put massive brain power into making a better world for young people. And that would be, self-interestedly, that would make us safer. But, there's almost like this calling. What was the very first line the Torah starts the Jewish journey with? Through you should be blessed all families of earth. And it's almost like subconsciously the world's putting you're to blame. We don't need to accept the idea we're to blame, but let's take the flip side of that. If we're not going to be treated like other nations, let's turn that into, let's bring our talents, skills, and experience of thousands of years to make a better world for everybody. And I think we can really do it.
Well, I like the optimism, and I certainly hope so. Rabbi Rowe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu held a trilateral summit with Greece and Cyprus to boost cooperation and discuss future plans. Have a look.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis and with Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulis. Netanyahu held separate talks with each leader before a three-way session with diplomatic and energy teams. Security loomed large over the summit against a backdrop of rising regional pressures. Israel, Greece, and Cyprus all share concerns over Turkey's growing military and diplomatic assertiveness, from Israel's borders with Syria and Gaza to Greek airspace violations and Cyprus's decades-long division following Turkey's 1974 invasion.
We discuss defense and security cooperation. We can do much more, and we'll do so. Also within the 3+1 framework, recognizing at the same time that much more can be achieved in the fields of counterterrorism, cyber, and energy security, always in support of regional stability.
The leaders discussed detailed cooperation in energy, technology, connectivity, and security, announcing a joint commitment to advance the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC. The project would link Asia and Europe through maritime routes, energy pipelines, and undersea cables via Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. And when it comes to Gaza, the Greek leader indicated willingness to have a role in the stabilization force.
Stand ready to contribute to the day after through diplomacy and stabilization efforts. I think we're a country that is well respected in the region, and should there be an opportunity to play this role, we will certainly embrace it.
Netanyahu said the three leaders are united to face all threats, including the shared conviction that Turkey must be kept at bay.
We agreed today to deepen our security and defense cooperation. The threats we face are real. Together, we're defending not only our own nations, but vital sea lanes and critical infrastructure that the global economy depends on. To those who fantasize they can reestablish their empires and their dominion over our lands, I say, forget it. It's not going to happen. Don't even think about it.
Well, that's all we have for you today in Good Week Israel. I hope we've helped to deliver some positive news that you get to now take with you into this week ahead. As always, I'm Devo Klein. Take care, and thank you so much for watching.
A former Israeli hostage, Romi Gonen, has broken her silence, revealing for the first time that she was sexually assaulted repeatedly during her 471 days in Hamas captivity in Gaza. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
In an interview aired on Channel 12's investigative program Uvda, Gonen described being abused by 4 different men, including by individuals she said presented themselves as medical caregivers.
עד שאתה לא בסיטואציה הזאת, אתה לא יכול להבין מה קורה לגוף. ופחד לפעמים הוא משתק. ואני השתתקתי. ואני חושבת שלא עבר לי יותר מדי במוח בשניות האלה, חוץ מזה שאני ממש מפחדת. אני ממש נגאלת. ולמה?
Gonen was abducted from the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, 2023, after being shot in the arm. She said she was first taken to Shifa Hospital in Gaza, where, while wounded and bleeding, she was stripped and touched by multiple men. She described feeling paralyzed by fear, saying the experience felt out of body, as if she were watching it happen from above. Days later, while held in a private home, Gonen said a man tasked with treating her injury followed her into the shower and assaulted her there. She said she had no power to resist and was forced to continue living in the same house with him afterward.
יש איזה רגע אחד בשירותים, בזמן שהכל קורה, ואני כאילו בוכה בטירוף.
את בוכה תוך כדי?
כן, אני רק בוכה, זה מה שאני עושה, אני רק בוכה.
והוא?
בשיא של החיים שלו. בשיא שלו, כאילו, הוא קיבל עכשיו מתנה לכל החיים, ואני זוכרת ממש איזה רגע אחד שאני מסתכלת, היה שם חלון כזה, ריבוע קטן, כמו מסגרת של תמונה, ואני מסתכלת דרך החלון, האמת, וואו, השמיים כחולים, הציפורים מצייצות, וזאת הסיטואציה שאני נמצאת בה כרגע.
Over the following weeks, Gonen said the abuse escalated. One captor told her he would sleep next to her every night, accompany her to the bathroom, and handcuff her. She added she was threatened with death threats if she ever spoke up about what was done to her. Describing the worst assault of them all, Gonen said a Hamas gunman abused her for around 30 minutes while she cried, saying she was completely paralyzed by fear.
והוא מתקרב אליי, והוא מצמיד לי אקדח לראש, והוא אומר לי, אם את תספרי את זה למישהו, אני הורג אותה.
Israel is revolutionizing modern medicine through bioconvergence, the fusion of biology and technology, to tackle some of the world's toughest healthcare challenges. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman explains. Let's take a look.
The healthcare industry is facing a global crisis, from superbugs to neurological diseases. But Israel is leading the way with groundbreaking solutions. One of the country's boldest initiatives is the National Bioconvergence Program, bridging the worlds of biology and technology to create life-saving innovations.
Today, 1.3 million people die in the world due to antimicrobial resistance or superbugs, and by 2050, 10 million deaths are expected.
Antimicrobial resistance, or superbugs, is one of humanity's greatest threats. But Israeli startup Nanocynics has developed a rapid diagnostic platform that gives doctors same-day results, helping them prescribe the right antibiotic in under 5 hours.
It's a bioconvergent platform that consists of a disposable microfluidic test card, a hardware and a software, which can also not only treat the patient better, but also prevent the propagation of superbugs in the environment, in particular in hospitals.
The technology could save millions of lives and potentially prevent an estimated $100 trillion in global economic losses by mid-century. Another pioneering company, ILTV Beyond, is growing lab-made brain tissue derived from patient cells to test and develop new drugs for neurological disorders. This breakthrough blends biology, electronics, and AI, the essence of bioconvergence.
Our company, ILTV Beyond, is developing a patient-derived lab-grown brain tissue to test and develop new drugs for these disorders.
Bioconvergence is the world in which biology meets other technologies from the world of engineering, both hardware and software.
Supported by the Israel Innovation Authority, the Bioconvergence Program provides startups like these with funding, accelerators, and access to a powerful ecosystem of researchers and entrepreneurs.
You will find bioconvergence technologies in healthcare, in food, in agriculture, climate, sustainability, and so it's a very wide range of precision tools to deal with different challenges.
Israel's a unique mix of high-tech expertise and world-class biomedical research makes it a natural leader in this fast-emerging field. The program's holistic approach, merging the strengths of biology, engineering, and computation to generate cutting-edge solutions for complex challenges, ensures that promising ideas become real-world impact faster. From fighting deadly bacteria to finding cures for brain disorders, Israel's innovators are proving that when technology and biology come together, the results can transform lives. To learn more about Israel's Bioconvergence program, visit the Bioconvergence website.
Israel's only English news channel, bringing you the headlines that matter every hour, straight from the center of where it's all unfolding.
Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Alec Pollard coming to you live from Israel with the top stories in the region. Reports from the U.S. indicate that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have agreed to a 2-month deadline for Hamas to disarm in Gaza. They agreed on practical criteria for what disarmament means, and according to the report, one of those is the destruction of Hamas's extensive tunnel network underneath the Strip. In remarks given alongside Netanyahu on Monday night in Mar-a-Lago, Trump threatened Hamas will have hell to pay if they do not disarm within a very short period. Asked about phase 2 of the ceasefire, Netanyahu said this to Fox News.
What has been so hard about getting to phase 2, which is of this peace plan, the Hamas disarmament, getting an international stabilization force on the ground in Gaza?
Well, one word, disarmament. Hamas committed to disarm. It's got still about 20,000 people with basically Kalashnikov rifles, which they use periodically to execute anyone who doesn't want the continuation of their tyranny. So they kill a lot of Palestinians who don't want them. And they have altogether 60,000 AK rifles. That's what disarmament means. Got to take all these rifles, take them away from them. And and break up those terror tunnels that they have, still hundreds of kilometers of terror tunnels. Hamas refuses to do it.
Do you think you'll get there? Do you think you'll get to phase 2, even though there's this unwillingness by Hamas to disarm?
Look, I think we have to give it a chance. There's an attempt to bring an international force. So far, it hasn't come to fruition, but we'll give it a chance because if it can be done, again, as the president and I have said, if it can be done the easy way, fine. And if not, it'll be done another way.
Coming in.
Meanwhile, Israel is pushing back against Turkey's growing role in regional affairs, from Gaza to the Horn of Africa. Jerusalem asked the Trump administration to exclude Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan from a new international stabilization force that will help shape the future of Gaza, and to keep Turkey off the board of peace, a new international forum expected to oversee the next phase of the Gaza peace plan. At the same time, tensions between Israel and Turkey are rising on another front. Standing with the leader of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, Erdogan strongly condemned Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland to the north of Somalia as an independent state, calling the move illegal and accusing Israel of trying to destabilize the Horn of Africa and undermine Somalia's territorial integrity.
Somaliland'i tanıma kararı gayrimeşrudur ve kabul edilemez. Elinde 71 bin Filistinli kardeşimizin kanı olan Netanyahu hükümeti Gazze, Lübnan, Yemen, İran, Katar ve Suriye'ye yönelik saldırılarının ardından şimdi de Afrika boynuzunu istikrarsızlığa sürükleme gayretindedir.
In our discussion today, we strongly rejected Prime Minister Netanyahu's illegal aggression in recognizing part of Somalia's northern regions as an independent state. This aggression and the blatant meddling constitute a clear violation of the international law, the Charter of the United Nations, the Constitutive Act of the African Union, and all established diplomatic norms.
And we finish with some positive news: less pain at the pumps. From tomorrow, the price of gas in Israel is dropping below 7 shekels per liter for the first time in 4 years. Israel's Fuel and Gas Administration announced that from the first day of the new year, the price of self-service 95-octane gasoline will fall to 6.85 shekels per liter, which is down 1/4 of a shekel from last month. Officials say the 11% reductions result from international gas prices, reduced demand, and a slight weakening of the US dollar, although gas is still not cheap in Israel, amounting to $7.19 per gallon. And that is all for ILTV News on the Hour. Thank you very much for tuning in, and stay updated throughout the day on our news channel.
One week after a jihadi mass shooting in Australia, terror plots are unfolding from New York and California to Germany and Canada, and now the American right is imploding over Israel, Jews, and Islam. This isn't foreign anymore, it's here. We're unpacking it all on the Quad. Welcome back, everybody, to the Quad, and here in our Jerusalem studios with our wonderful panel, Emily Schrader, human rights activist and journalist, Shoshana Keats-Jaskal, the founder of Chokhmat Nashim, elevating Orthodox women's voices and fighting discrimination, and an extra special guest co-host all the way from California, Tanya Tsikhanovsky, who is, for most of you will know her as highly Jewish on Instagram, and the incredible advocacy work that you do. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, what is going on? This is what's happened in the last week. Here you go.
Well, it's been 1 week since the heart of Bondi was shattered by an act of unimaginable evil.
2 gunmen opened fire, killing 15 people.
Since Monday, the NYPD has received reports about 2 possible bias incidents against the Jewish community.
The FBI has arrested 4 alleged members of a radical left-wing group accused of plotting New Year's Eve bombings in Los Angeles.
Toronto and Peel police have arrested 3 men who face dozens of charges.
To alleged kidnapping, conspiracy to commit sexual assault, and hostage-taking. One of the men is also facing ISIS-related terror charges.
German authorities have arrested 5 men suspected of planning an attack on a Christmas market in Bavaria.
Has the West been infiltrated? There was a very disturbing video by a wonderful guy called Ami Horowitz, where he went around campuses asking people to sign up to kill Jews, shoot Jews, and injure Jews. Look how this went down.
I'm here at San Francisco State University, one of the most left-leaning intersectional schools in the country. I'm here to raise money to kill Jews. Raise money for arms and weapons to fight back against the Jews, operations against the Jews, but around the world, in France, in Germany, here, in Britain, wherever they are, but here and in Europe, we want to raise arms so we can strike them all over the world. We have to hit these people hard.
Yeah.
And we want to fund operations against soft targets. Schools, hospitals, Jewish cafes, hospitals, Jewish schools, Jewish buses, synagogues, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we have to strike back.
Yeah.
We can't
I
allow-
definitely agree. Yeah, most definitely.
You agree with what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. But yes, I would totally be down.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
bro, I agree with you. I mean, you understand what I'm saying
Yes.
about hitting these targets.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I like what you're saying. I would love to help.
You want to spread the word too? Spread the word for sure. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have money to give, but if you need word
of
but
mouth,
moral support, you can give me.
Yeah.
And just spread the message.
Like
promotions, like putting on a story or something. How much money would you be able to do? It's tax deductible.
Couple bucks.
Like 5.
Also 5? Like $5.
$5.
But yeah, 5, 10.
I'll probably do like $5.
$5 is great. 10?
Yeah, like 5 to 10. Like $15 right now. Say $15.
That'd be amazing.
Like $15-20 probably.
That'd be great.
Cool 20.
20? Yeah. Come on, here, brother. Come on, here, brother.
All right, ladies. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. It just feels like we're living, to me anyway, and also I'm spending too much on Twitter. Instagram is like where I go to relax, which is not good. But I feel like I'm living in the twilight zone. Are we living in the twilight zone, Emily?
I don't know that it's the twilight zone, but it's definitely a difficult time. And I think that there's a lot of people who, for some reason, don't want to call a spade and speak about what's directly in front of them and the direction that the entire country and the United States and world, Western world at least, are going. And that's extremely disturbing. I don't know how else to put it. I'm profoundly disappointed every time I open social media, even though I shouldn't be, I guess, but I am.
I would be happy just to feel disappointed.
Yeah.
I feel like the past few days,
Yeah,
I've almost like sank into, it's like our Bubby prepared us for this. Like I always say that, it's not surprising to me that there's anti-Semitism around the world and you can see patterns in history. But honestly, when everyone is talking about the Jews,
yes,
we're in bad shape. Like when friggin' Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, well, Ben Shapiro on the positive side, but everyone else is screaming about the Jews in Israel. There's so much going on in the world.
Yes.
There's an entire world full of drama and misery and pain and suffering that needs attention, but all anyone can ever talk about is the Jews. To me, this is the biggest warning sign that we've had, in my opinion, in the past decade or so at least. I'm scared.
I'm actually also scared. And Tanya, for you, it's all the more real because actually they discovered a plot in California for going around shooting people. Some people actually did get shot. You live in LA.
Yes.
And I know that you've been the target of much anti-Semitism, especially in your own community. Maybe tell us a little about what you've experienced and what made you come to Israel at this time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you know, I think it's pretty obvious. I am a lesbian. Yes, I mean, I know it's hard to tell these days. We no longer know what a lesbian is, but or a woman is. But I am an old school lesbian. I was born a female. I identify as a woman. I identify as lesbian, That's a baseline. And I have been an activist for the gay community my entire life. Yes, I've always been a Jew and I've been a Zionist. Those are, to me, one and the same thing. But I've spent my whole life championing gay rights. So just this past year, when talking about June, Gay Pride Month, Dyke Day in LA, which has been around for nearly 17 years, is a day where you can get together in a park with fellow lesbians. Now, historically, it was lesbians. Now you have everything under the sun, and there, all the alphabets. But that was typically what it was for lesbians to come together and celebrate. And unfortunately, over the last year and a half, actually even before this year, it ended up being a keffiyeh parade. You had shirts that said "Globalize the Intifada," faggots for the Intifada.
Oh.
I mean, this is like a suicidal mission. I mean, I've never seen such. I mean, it's
send some of those to Gaza.
Please, the shirts and the people, because they really need to understand what's happening. And this year, the promoters for the event said that Zionists were banned. Now, they were very smart. The actual party throwers did not put this on their social media, but the promoters for the party did and said the Zionists were banned. So, of course, I'm too much of a dyke for you to not allow me in a gay space, and I'm certainly not going to let you push me out as a Jew either. So I got a bunch of queer Zionists together. Now, I hate the word queer. I like to just say gay, but no one really understands what gay is anymore.
We do.
So,
we're all
wonderful.
We're all
Thank you.
allies.
Great. So I got a bunch of lesbians together, Zionists. We have to hire private security. A friend of mine insisted on it just because.
To show up.
Just to be there with us in case anybody wanted to harm us. I wore a bright shirt that said Israel on it. Now, I already have a giant Jewish star tattoo on my arm. I have the Israeli flag tattooed on my leg. So I'm already like the walking mascot for Israel. If anyone wants to hire me, there you go. So I decided to wear a camera, and we're walking around the entire park. And the park, I'll tell you, takes about 3,000 people. So we have 3,000 individuals that are spread all around the park, eating, drinking, dancing. And I'm walking around, and you would think that I had some visible disease. People were spitting on the ground as I was walking by. People were telling me, go home. And this is what really, really killed me. As I was walking, two women, now feminine presenting women. Now, again, I always say this as a joke, like my girlfriend's feminine presenting. Thank God. I don't want someone looking like me. But when you think about Dyke Day, what do you think of? You think of me. I'm the mile away gay. I'm the one that is gay from a mile away, okay? But when you're at Dyke Day and you have two feminine presenting women that have never had to live the hard life that I've had to live as a visible lesbian, that can pass in any room if they need to be safe, are visibly telling me, why are you here? You don't belong here. Because I support Israel, the one place in the Middle East that actually keeps us safe and celebrates us, is absolutely insane. And what's worse is these women were self-identifying Jews. So I am sitting here and seeing anti-Semitism on the left. They've completely lost their minds.
Yes.
It's now on the right, which it's always been there, but now it's even become more emboldened. And then you have the people that are actually Jews that are voting for Mamdani, that are just in every single way behaving like against their own self-interest.
Yes.
I mean,
internalized
internalized anti-Semitism. It's absolutely, I feel bad for our ancestors to have to see it. Truly.
There's always been Jews who take the side of the enemy. There's always been a small amount of Jews who think somehow
if I
they'll
see that
be free
video
of it.
Mamdani and Mandy Patinkin is one more time, everyone's sharing it all around the world. You know what I'm talking about, making latkes together.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, just kill me.
And Bernie Sanders, he's always in the photo op with him. Again, it's absolutely insane.
I kind of love when the anti-Semites and the self-hating Jews, or as you call them, the non-Jews.
The non-Jewish Jews.
Or the Palestinians, as Trump likes to say, since Chuck Schumer's more of a Palestinian than a Jew.
That's what he says.
Correct.
But I love when they're celebrating Hanukkah because it's like literally the most Zionist holiday that exists.
They don't know.
And they're so clueless that they have no idea what Hanukkah actually stands for. And the fact that it is a nationalist, Zionist, pro-Israel holiday.
Well, that just shows how ignorant they are and how detached from their own identity and from their own traditions and from everything. They see Hanukkah as just another version of Christmas for Jews, instead of actually understanding that it's a story of Jewish rebels taking back the temple.
Cynthia Nixon with
Resistance.
her
Oh God, Cynthia Nixon. Oh my God.
Yes. Well, can I just ask a question? Because we had Daniel Ryan here for a
I love
number of
him.
months.
Good friend of mine.
He's a great guy. I adore him and I miss him. Daniel, I miss you. He's in Argentina right now having a great time.
He's such a sweetheart.
But he thinks that the lesbian community has actually been worse than the gay male community.
Oh, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. Well, look, I do have a little bit of a conspiracy theory, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'll say this. However, you know that in Iran it's illegal to be gay. We do know this.
Yes.
But it's actually legal to be trans. It's even subsidized by the government, right? Humanity's government.
Yes.
Humanity's government in 1989.
They would rather a man become a woman and lead a heterosexual.
It's a corrective measure, right? So imagine now that we all know that they infiltrated our campuses prior to October 7th. They were all already prepared in their PR war against Jews.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me that the gay community, in particular the trans community, is a community that hates Jews the most right now. So it's hard for me to not see that connection and to not see that there is an infiltration. It's been happening since 2008 when I was in London and they weren't teaching the Holocaust in public schools anymore because it was going to offend the Muslim students. I don't even understand how you make those those leaps in your brain, but at the end of the day, it's just justified anti-Semitism. And that has been sprinkled around throughout the world for years.
Well, you know, the thing that's so irritating about this is how they're hijacking all of these causes is that it damages the people like you. It damages the people like Brianna Wu and other people who are activists that just want to live their lives, whether they're trans or lesbian or whatever. And they can't do that because they're being demonized by this subversive narrative that's been shoved down their throats into all of these social justice movements that the cause in and of itself is just. It's something worth fighting for. But it becomes something else entirely when all these like free Palestine death cult people get involved in it.
But it's like a social justice soup. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, what are we actually fighting for? What are our principles? What's the actual problem? I mean, when I was growing up, we were fighting for marriage equality. It was illegal for me to be married, okay? So I was an activist. I was not protected under the law in terms of hate crimes. Now I am federally. So we won. Yay. Like, life is good now. What is there to still continue fighting? So I feel like now they find the vulnerable communities that feel like they don't have much to fight for anymore and give them some kind of a cause. And everyone likes to feel righteous. And we like to feel like we're doing something right, even as Jews and as gay people that have spent our whole lives fighting for equality. So if that's what we stand on and that's who we are, that's what the core of who we are, then it's not surprising that someone who is uneducated and doesn't have skin in the game, doesn't have family that are from the Holocaust, that doesn't have any concept of what Israel actually is, to then just join in with the crowd that is quote unquote being oppressed, even though we know they're not. So
I mean, what's disturbing to me is that in the last few weeks, it's gone from narrative to reality. It's gone from, swastikas and harassment of Jews at a protest, which is bad enough, to killing. I mean, to attacking. Has the Intifada now gone global? Is this what they wanted?
Yes, it has already been globalized. It's here. We are here.
We're here, right?
It's arrived.
I mean, it's not me.
No. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns at the Bondi Memorial. I actually watched the whole 10 minutes because he said what you just said. He said, it starts here, it comes here, and now it's on our beaches. It's no longer just chance. We owe our Jewish community safety. We have to fight against hate. He called on everyone to do mitzvah a day, which is it's really a beautiful speech. You should watch the whole thing. And I said, this is the first time I felt hope because a politician is saying, we messed up. We didn't take care of what we needed to. And it's becoming, like what you said, from words to on our streets, and we have to stop it now. That's what we need to hear from everybody. That is what we need to hear from everybody.
We need to see.
No, of course, but first he has to say it and then put it into legislation. Because honestly, the fact that look, I'll show you a screwed up thing.
How can you put it into legislation when the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated all of these governments to the point that I don't mean infiltrated as in physically. I mean infiltrated as in anytime you take a stand against Islamist ideology, these politicians get smeared, get slandered, get sued and
we have to
accused
back
of
them up.
Islamophobia. And it's not Islamophobia. Standing against Islamist ideology that kills Muslims in the Middle East is not Islamophobia. Yet all of the Western governments have been taught this and are harassed this way and are lobbied on this narrative and this argument. And I don't have any faith, even if there are a few individuals, even if there are a few members of Congress, which there are in the UK, in Belgium, in the US, Canada, Australia, it's not enough. It's not enough, because you can take a stand against it and say, oh, this is wrong and we have to do something, we have to do something. They've been saying we have to do something for like 20 years. What have they actually done?
What's really crazy is that these politicians don't understand that being against the spread of Islamism is actually patriotic. That is the #1 way to understand that we are Americans, because we support Western values. I saw a video where Mamdani was saying that all 5 boroughs were against Western values. And in my mind, I'm like, then what exactly are you trying to do in New York that is supposed to be like the pillar of what we consider to be Western values in America? And as politicians that are sitting in our government, they should be supporting America. And so forget even like the Jewish cause, which for me obviously is the near and dear and the most important to my heart. But as an American, for national security reasons, to make sure that I am safe, like people always talk about abortion and gay marriage. I'm sorry, worry about driving a car, worry about being able to vote, worry about like having basic human rights that will be stripped from us if Islamism actually spreads.
They have no
so
concept. They have no concept.
It's so wild to me.
They can't understand it.
No.
They can't understand it. And I think that also for a long time, Jews, especially younger Jews, really didn't understand that anti-Semitism still existed. And now
I was one of them.
It's kind of shocking. You grow up thinking, I'm in America. And again, you know, all these accusations against Jews who are prosperous, who've done things, those Jews did things for their country, not as Jews, as Americans. Those Jews are the most patriotic Americans that exist. All of those people that are being maligned today, that is the saddest thing about anti-Semitism, that what people don't seem to realize is that American Jews feel very American. Now, can you say the same thing for Islamist Americans? I don't think so, because they're telling you to their faces. And the worst example, or the best example, is what's going on in the Republican or in the conservative movement, as witnessed this week in the Turning Point event.
Yes.
I mean, we have lots of scumbags that are going to come out of that, but let's just talk about the event. I just don't understand how you can have people on stage in the conservative movement, some of them saying the worst thing to happen to us is Israel or Jews, and the other side saying, wake up, the Islamists are going to take over.
So I will say, the one thing that I do want to applaud the Republicans for, and of course I'm biased because now I'm a Republican, so
You
I'll
are
say
now?
that.
Why?
Because from October 7th, because I mean, if I'm a Jew, that's why I'm a Republican. I have a brain. That's how I'm a Republican. But Democrats
Might have to rethink that after the way things are going. But
I mean, yes, but I will say
not
this.
to be a Democrat, just nothing.
I know, I agree with that. But listen, Democrats do not in any way.
There's no debate, just
at all.
Yeah.
There's no debate.
But with Republicans,
They're having a-
as much as I do not like what is being said, at least they are willing to platform two opposing viewpoints.
Yes.
To give us the opportunity as viewers to discern what we want to believe is right. Now, with that said, there are certain things that should just be through lines for both parties. Just for anyone that is a citizen of the United States, there should just be a through line that anti-Semitism and extremism and bending over for, you know, Qatar is probably not the way that you should go. And that should just be the through line for all parties, for everything in government and within civilians. We should just know that, you know, extremism on either side is wrong. So, of course, I'm not happy that we had, you know, Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or all of those people being platformed and, you know, emboldened. But I also, at the very least, we know that we are able to have a discussion and hopefully rid that side of all of these people.
There is a debate and they are fighting. There is a fight in the conservative movement. Don't you think so, Emily?
I mean, yeah, I guess it's clear that they're fighting. It seems more like a battle of egos in many cases, but I actually don't think it's a good thing that they're debating, because I don't think that a neo-Nazi ideology is something that needs to be debated.
Agreed.
It's something that was debated and they lost.
Yes.
Yes.
The Nazis lost,
Yes.
literally and ideologically.
Yes.
And the fact that you have people who are trying to bring this up again and rebrand it and repackage it as if it's a legitimate argument when it's not.
Yeah.
And we know it's not, and it's been proven it's not. is doing a disservice to all of the Republican Party. It isn't a fair argument. It isn't a fair debate because these aren't legitimate political opinions. And a lot of this is being spearheaded by people like Nick Fuentes, who is a neo-Nazi. However, he contradicts himself every other word. This isn't a coherent ideology, a well-formulated argument that he has for the ideas and the policies that he wants to advocate. This is someone who wants attention on social media. And so when we're having a debate about these ideas, first of all, what ideas? Half of them are contradictory. And second of all, why do you need to have a debate about something that's already been proven wrong? You're only giving voice and giving air and giving platform to radicalism in a way that it's coming from a place of, you know, I talked about this also on my show this week, but the loser mentality, where everything is always someone else's fault. I don't like this, the Jews. I don't like that, the Jews. The Jews have too much money. They control the banks. They control the media. They control this. Everything I don't like in my life is because of a Jew. And that's what you see from the anti-Semites on the right. This scapegoating, this victim blaming. But we're talking about
and the conspiracy
USA and the conspiracies. If I don't have something, it must be because there's a conspiracy. It's not my own responsibility to take initiative.
Which is ironically against every single principle of the Republican movement.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's not about a debate.
Personal responsibility. No conservatism. Personal responsibility is conservatism, which is what Ben Shapiro was talking about.
And it is so damaging to the United States of America. Like, I think people are so caught up in this that they're not realizing what's happening to the country. Like, if you are going to spend your time fighting about whose fault it is that X, Y, and Z, or whether there is actually a global union of Jews who are a cabal who's like, what is happening to your country? There's no United States of America. I grew up in the United States of America. I love it. And it's really sad. I don't recognize it anymore. I don't know if it has a future. Why are you here instead of here? Like, that's, it's like a distraction, and then someone else is gonna, all of a sudden you can turn around and be like, where's my country? You lost it.
The question really is, to me, are these just the very loud minority? And most people are like, come on, give me a break. Like, that all we hear are the extremists because they're making the noise? Or is it consensus? And I'm beginning to worry that a very effective Muslim Brotherhood campaign coming out of Qatar, the Islamic Republic, is actually becoming consensus. I had a bit of a shocking conversation with somebody recently, Christian, who said to me something like, but what about the discrimination of Christians in the West Bank? Like, where did you hear this from? So now I'm beginning to see that regular, intelligent people, I thought were intelligent, it's happening. It really is getting through. And that conversation really scared me.
Well, you know, before Charlie Kirk was murdered in that horrific event, I was actually very vocally against him. Because it was right after the AmFest event that they had the year before. And he had invited Tucker Carlson and also Dave Smith. Okay, Dave Smith is not an intellectual.
No.
He's not a public intellectual.
He's an idiot. He's a failed comedian.
He knows nothing about anything outside of the United States and yet spouts off his opinion as if he's a frickin' scholar of international relations. He has no business being there in the first place in any kind of intellectual debate, much less about foreign policy. That's the first thing. The second thing, Tucker Carlson was there. Tucker Carlson is not a Republican. He's not a conservative. The ideas that he is advocating are not things that have ever really been consensus on the right. The people he's platforming, from George Galloway to Francesca Albanese to Nick Fuentes himself, these are not people, Alex Jones, all of these people. These are not leaders of any kind of conservative, intellectual, or otherwise movement. And so to continue to platform him as if he's a legitimate conservative representative is insane. And TPUSA was wrong then, before Charlie passed away, before Charlie was murdered, and they're wrong now. And the fact that they did so after Charlie was murdered is even more appalling. Why was this man speaking at Charlie's funeral? I don't care who he's friends with, which is something that Ben Shapiro spoke so eloquently about during his speech at the TPUSA conference. It doesn't matter who you're friends with in personal life, okay? When you are presenting yourself, when you are recycling bad ideas, as Ben talks about with Tucker Carlson, this isn't something that should be given a platform, certainly not at TPUSA. USA. And so to see them doing this again, not only once, but doubling down and doing it again, it's disgraceful. And it's the reason that I am against them. And it's the reason that I think this organization has massive problems, including internally. I'm extremely disappointed that they did that. Extremely.
Well, especially when the people that they're platforming are people that platformed haters of Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
Nick Fuentes was a hater. Candace Owens, who people have been silent about, and this was the whole thing of Ben's speech, you know, people are giving her a free pass like Megyn Kelly.
Yeah, she's relevant now somehow. Well, she stopped being relevant for a while.
Megyn Kelly.
No, Candace Owens. She used to be relevant.
She's accusing the grieving widow of the founder of this incredible organization, because they have done great things for the youth of America. And you're platforming somebody who is accusing the widow of being part of the murder? I just don't understand where real kind of ideas loyalty lies, where values lie. Where values?
Well, when you were talking about, you know, like consensus, like if anti-Semitism and all of this hate is now, you know, is it just on the extremes or is it mainstream? And to me, I just think about it's now on the local level. You know, it's now in education. You have schools that are rewriting actual history, that are changing the maps of things to not include Israel, that are, you know, pushing DEI initiatives, which to me I've changed it to doing everything incorrectly because it's not inclusive of Jews. How do you not include Jews in this situation?
It's actually far beyond Jews. You're exactly right. We also see, and this actually came also from Tucker Carlson, the historians he's platformed who are trying to rebrand World War II.
And Hitler as a good guy.
Well,
as
I don't
Churchill
know.
as the bad guy.
We shouldn't have, the UK shouldn't have attacked Germany because Germany didn't attack them, you know?
What? I want to say something as a mom, because I feel like there's a lot of noise in the media, there's a ton of noise in social media, and don't give your kid a phone like this until they're at least 16 or 17 years old, and after you've spoken with them about it. That is 100% the way you should go. But there's so much noise and so much going into your child's brain that you have to be the filter. You have to teach your kid. You have to teach values, to teach history. You have to tell them to not just listen to any big mouth or pretty hair on the internet. They have to understand not everyone is a scholar. Not everyone knows what they're talking about. In fact, few people do. And as a parent, I feel like my number one responsibility is to make sure that my child at least knows reality, evil from good, something that is, you know, ask a question, doubt, you know, look it up somewhere, like take an encyclopedia out of the library, you know, like
that would mean critical thinking is still alive.
Critical thinking. That's what I'm trying to say.
And on that positive note, we go on to our very favorite segment, Scumbag of the Week. All right, let's start with you, Tanya, because you are new to this Scumbag of the Week, even though you've been pointing them out for quite a while yourself.
Yes.
Who's your
Too
scumbag?
many.
Who's your scumbag this week?
You know, unfortunately, Chuck Schumer. You know, during the horrible massacre at Bondi Beach, let's be clear, 15 people lost their lives that day, and they were Jews. Most of them were all Jews. This man is a Jew. He is sitting in our government. He is the highest sitting Jew in our government.
Yeah.
And before he goes on live television to discuss what happened at the beach, he decides to say, now, before I get into it, I have to say, go Bills. They had a great game against the Patriots.
And of course, I'm going to say a few words about the terrible shooting in Sydney, Australia. Okay? So, and first, of course, as I always say, no matter what, go Bills. They beat the Patriots today. It's a big deal.
It's disgusting. And I'm just sitting here and thinking, I don't know another Jew in my vicinity that wasn't crying, that wasn't feeling pain and just like anguish and despair and fear and just empathy. And we have someone that is supposed to, you know, be the visible Jew in our government, and he's making jokes and supporting a football game like this is just like a regular day. It's, as a Jew, he should be so ashamed, and if I were his parents, I would be ashamed.
Well, I couldn't agree more. He's a repeat scumbag on this show. and the truth is that Trump is right. He says Chuck Schumer is the first Palestinian. Listen, Chuck Schumer is somebody who's worked against his community. He's somebody who went and said to Columbia University administration, don't worry about anti-Semitism, only the Republicans care. This is the man. This is the man. This is the man who's basically sold out his own community for whatever little love, warmth, or popularity he got from the enemies. So great scumbag. Thank you, Tanya. Emily, who's your scumbag this week?
So my scumbag this week is Myron Gaines, whose actual name is Amru Fudul. He is Arab himself. He has fashioned himself an activist, I guess on the, I thought he was on the left, but apparently now he's attending the AmFest of Turning Point USA, where he was this weekend. This is a guy who tweeted not so long ago, yeah, we like Hitler. No one gives a f what you woke Jews think anymore. Bro was a revolutionary leader and saved Germany. The Jews declared war on Germany first. Yeah. So these are the kinds of people that are being allowed, apparently, to attend and take part in the Turning Point USA conference. So you would think that there's a line that they would not allow people to cross when it comes to attendance and participation in an event like this. Now, to be fair, he didn't speak. However, he was all over the conference wearing a shirt that says, let 'em cook, which is a meme of Sesame Street character taking cookies out of the oven. It's an anti-Semitic meme referring to how Jews were cooked in the Holocaust. This is someone, Myron Gaines, who's a known Holocaust denier. At the same time, he's praising Hitler, of course, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And also someone who has called Palestinian terrorism repeatedly resistance, has endorsed violence against Jewish individuals around the world. And apparently this is also someone that is now, his ideas should be debated on the right. So yeah, the Republicans have a problem, a big problem. And more needs to be done than just saying, oh, that's bad, we don't agree with that. No, it shouldn't be a debate. These people should not be welcome in these environments. And I know when I was involved in politics in the United States that there were individuals who were neo-Nazis that were physically expelled from conservative conferences. And the fact that Myron Gaines was able to walk around freely taking photos with known influencers, one of which, by the way, was Emily Wilson, aka Emily Saves America, who was just on that recent trip to Qatar. Yeah. The fact that these people are able to walk around freely without concern about being thrown out of the very event that they came to attend, it's a disgrace, and there's really no excuse for it. So Myron Gaines, you're my scumbag of the week.
And yes, to be very clear, I agree with you fully on that. As much as I was saying that I like that we embrace different opinions, that's where the through line cuts off. If you were, they should not even be there as guests. They should not be platformed at all. And if I were TPUSA, I would be embarrassed to have any association with these people.
We should be embarrassed, for God's sake. They should be embarrassed. I mean, never mind the fact that they're completely revising history in the most awful way. Wonderful scumbag. We didn't even know who he was, but I did see that T-shirt. And I think that, in fact, it was Nick Fuentes who did a whole metaphor of the Holocaust and the camps talking about cookies.
Yes.
Which was disgusting. I remember watching it and feeling like I wanted to vomit, and this is the type of people they're embracing now. Shoshana, who's your scumbag this week?
I have to just say I'm thoroughly depressed.
Yes.
I'm thoroughly depressed. My scumbag is on the same note, Steve Bannon, who embraced another conspiracy theory about Jews by calling Ben Shapiro a cancer.
Ben Shapiro is like a cancer, and that cancer spreads.
You know, when you can't debate someone's ideas, when you can't argue with someone's facts, and you call them a cancer or some other blood libel that you pick out of the anti-Semitic history book, you've lost. The only people who are going to follow you are the nut jobs, the scumbags, the Nazis, and the people who have one brain cell to share among them. But my fellow Jews, I'm speaking to you right now, and I say, be careful, because this is everywhere. You really need to find allies, to talk, to share stories. You know, I'm a grandchild of survivors. I'm going back to Poland in March. Not that I want to go, but I'm going because we're unveiling tombstones and going to our roots, you know, like basically cutting us off from where we were in Poland. It's in living memory. And to let these people make cookie jokes about my family that were burned in ovens.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime. And it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to protect your community and not have another Bondi, and to really, I'm sorry to say, to take care of everybody as best you can, because it's just up to us.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
It's terrifying.
this is what globalized intifada
This is the globalized
actually looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was between scumbags because there were just so many this
So hard
week.
to pick.
So hard to choose, and I was going to go for Megyn Kelly, and then I thought, nah, She's just such a coward. I'm not even going to give her the time of day. So instead, I'm going for Dave Chappelle, who I used to like. I thought he was pretty funny years ago. I thought it was funny a few years ago, calling out woke. But then he turned on the Jews. What a surprise. And this week, what he did was, he also brings his anti-Semitism into his shows, not just on social media. He actually brings it into his shows, which makes the Jewish people in the audience extremely uncomfortable, but obviously he doesn't really care. Maybe that's even his objective. But this week, he was lashing out at Bill Maher, who's wonderful, about the fact that he was called out for going to Doha on that comedy fest that they did. They paid all these comedians to go to a country where freedom of speech doesn't exist to pretend that it does. And of course, he also converted to Islam a few years ago. So Dave Chappelle went along with yes, he did. He went along with a whole bunch of other comedians. And yes, as true to form in a country that actually has freedom of speech, he was called out for it. And so he went on stage and said, just to add to many of his blood libels, oh, people are saying that I shouldn't have gone to, no, sorry, it was Saudi Arabia, not Doha. People should have said I shouldn't have gone to Saudi Arabia because they killed a journalist. Well, Israel's killed 300 journalists.
These act like because I did a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia, I somehow betrayed my principle. They said, well, Saudi Arabia killed a journalist. And rest in peace, Jamal Khashoggi. I'm sorry that he got murdered in such a heinous fashion. But, and no buts, like, you know, period. And also, I mean, look, bro, Israel's killed 240 journalists in the last 3 months. So I didn't know y'all was still counting.
Well, I hate to break it to you, Dave Chappelle, but the majority, if not all of those journalists, were actually terrorists who were vlogging. They weren't really journalists, and we know that. Most of the ones that claim to be journalists are actually in Poland or Kenya because they pretended to be in Gaza when they weren't. And the ones that were in Gaza were very clearly employed by the Hamas propaganda machine, or they were scared by the Hamas propaganda machine and so went along with it, or they were killed by Hamas themselves. And so please check your facts before you carry on slandering Israel and the Jewish people. And you know what? Stick to comedy. You are no geopolitical expert. You are no religious expert. You are just a comedian with a microphone, okay? So you are my scumbag of the week, Dave Chappelle. All right. Oof. Yeah, gosh, it always feels like therapy.
Well, Dave Chappelle also has a more recent history of deeply anti-Semitic views in the first place, not about Israel, but about Jews. You know, he made a lot of comments. It's that same ideology I talked about, the loser mentality, where like everything that I don't like, every problem in the world is because of Jews. Yes, just throwing everything on the Jew. It's the oldest trick in the book.
But also, it's not new, exactly. It's just not new. The whole of Jewish history and all of, you know, Jewish history should be called the history of hating Jews. But all of it is all about scapegoatism. There's nothing new. Jews are this or they're that. They're capitalists or they're communists. They are the scourge or they are the this. Everything's like, you're losers. Get a life.
Our power is in that we don't focus on them.
No.
They always focus on us because we're not out here trying to convert the world. We're not out here trying to, you know, create every single Jewish country and like convert people from all over the place. We're not trying to do that. We're happy being who we are.
Yes.
And we're happy in our homeland. And that's it. We're going to support ourselves. We're going to empower ourselves. We're going to always survive and thrive. And that's what they're angry about, I think.
I couldn't agree more. They're angry at our resilience and success. And our success is because we work bloody hard.
Yes, we do.
Nobody gives us anything. Whatever country we go into, we work from the bottom. We just work hard. We have a work ethic. That's what you can't stand.
I mean, this is the core of Zionism, and also why Zionism itself as a concept has been targeted, because Zionism essentially is a movement that should be a blueprint for any minority rights movement in the world, for any historically oppressed minority group. And yet, we see time and time again that even some minority groups have turned on that instead because it's difficult to take responsibility.
Yeah.
It's difficult to take things into your own hand. Self-determination is difficult. That's why Palestinian leaders who are cowards have continued to reject it for 76 years.
Because it's much easier
for them to say, oh, Zionism is evil. No. Zionism is the example of liberation, of self-liberation of oppressed minority groups, and it is what everyone should be amplifying and should be using as an example.
Exactly. Taking responsibility, taking autonomy. Yeah, this is something which is foreign to losers who want to blame other people. And that's basically the umbrella of our scumbag of the week this week. There you go. But we always like to end our wonderful positive show with the heroes of the week. Shoshana, who's your hero this week?
My hero is 14-year-old Chaya Mushka Dadon, who you have to watch the video, the full video of her, I think on Sky News in Australia. It's so beautiful. So she basically, at the Bondi Hanukkah massacre, she heard children screaming and the mother saying, please take care of my kids, please take care of my kids. The mother had been shot. She left where she was taking cover and she put herself over these two children, and then she was shot in the leg. But she said, I felt it and I just used it as God gave me strength and I just channeled it. We said Shema. She said, she led the kids in the Shema prayer, which is something you say if you think you're going to die. And she saved their lives by shielding them from the bullets. And that's enough. But if you watch her interview, she's pure, and her love and her desire to like save these kids and just say how she got the strength from God. And she is a hero that everyone should just watch and say, I want to be like Chaya.
If I could give up my life saving these children, that's what I was going to do. So I climbed up from under the bench and I grabbed the kids from their mothers and I just jumped on top of them, and I was just holding them and saying Shema, and they didn't really know what it was, so I was just telling them, repeat after me, and I was telling it to everyone around me, and I felt just so circled with love in a field of hatred. Like I felt like we had to be the light in all of the darkness surrounding us.
I feel like in a week full of misery and pain, I just watched this video a few times and I'm just like, this is why we do what we do. This is why Jews do what we do, and we try to keep our families together and keep our people together, because this is who we are. And I wish you a full recovery, and you should just go from strength to strength and continue to be a heroine.
She's an inspiring young hero.
It's incredible. Did you see the video?
Yes.
I just was like,
she's like, this is my obligation. God was guiding me. It's just, she's inspirational.
Gorgeous.
This kid is
Incredible.
inspirational.
Yeah.
Emily, who's your hero this week?
So going back to the whole debate that we were just having, my hero this week is Ben Shapiro.
Oh, yeah.
Who gave an absolutely phenomenal 20-minute speech.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I recommend you watch this week, it's that speech.
Yes.
And there's several different reasons. It's not just because of the issue of anti-Semitism that we see popping up left, right, and sideways, literally. It's because what he advocated is something that's sorely lacking in the world today, and that is the pursuit of truth. And we see so many people who are public figures or commentators or journalists or influencers or all different, elected officials even, who are far more concerned with what gets them clicks and what gets them attention. That's part of the reason you see so much contradictory rhetoric from the anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes. And that's because they're not really concerned with guiding their audiences or educating their audience in terms of what actually happened, what's actually happening, what is reality, what is truth, with evidence, not throwing out conspiracy theories that make people feel like garbage and make people feel disgruntled and, have grievances with their society in some cases when they don't even exist. Again, back to that root of, the bitterness and the hatred that anti-Semitism is often rooted in. And Ben just spelled all of this out in his speech and talked about how people who have a platform and who have a voice, like all of us here, especially, that we have an obligation to our viewers, to you guys, to be truthful, to provide evidence for the things that we're speaking about, and to provide hope in some cases as well. And that doesn't give us a free pass to, not comment when we see that people we may even be personal friends with are off base, that it is our job as public commentators to speak out against that. And he publicly did so from that stage at TPUSA, the same stage where just in a few minutes after he spoke, we saw people like Tucker Carlson spew absolute nonsense from the stage.
He knew that Nick Fuentes is an evil troll and that building him up is an act of moral imbecility. And that is precisely what Tucker Carlson did. He built Nick Fuentes up. And he ought to take responsibility for that, just as he ought to take responsibility for glazing pornographer and alleged sex trafficker Andrew Tate, or for mainstreaming fake historian and pseudo-Nazi apologist Daryl Cooper as America's best and most honest popular historian. Hosts are indeed responsible for the guests they choose and the questions they ask those guests. Emotive accusations, conspiracy theories, and just guessing questions, that's lazy and stupid and misleading. None of them are a substitute for truth. None of them are a substitute for evidence. So, when Candace Owens says, "I don't know, but I know," that is retarded. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Yes, cowardice.
So that took a lot of courage, and he's been very consistent throughout the years, actually, in what his ideology is and what he believes. And, regardless of the anti-Semitism issue, that's something that I believe is really, truly worthy of respect. It's something that we should admire. It's something that we should be advocating as people who view and consume this type of content, and also people like us who are presenting a lot of this content on TV and in the public sphere. I agree with him, and I do think we have an obligation to pursue the truth and to provide evidence to our viewers. So I want to thank Ben Shapiro for that. You're my hero of the week.
He's a very, very worthy hero. You took that one from me. But I want to say also that, he didn't say a word about being Jewish or Israel. Not a word. And yet, when you see the nasty comments, he was only talking about America. He was only talking about the responsibility of right and wrong. And he said something very clearly. You're either on Erica Kirk's side or you're on the wrong side. And of course, because he's a Jew with a kippah on his head, so he's a visible Jew, he opened himself up to all the horrible, poisonous vitriol, which just shows the anti-Semitism.
And what he said? One of the things he said in his speech is that America is still the greatest country that has ever existed on the face of this earth.
Yes.
Not Israel.
Exactly.
He said the United States was, with the most ingenious constitution that has ever been known to mankind.
Yes.
It is the greatest experiment that has ever existed.
Yes.
And despite that, it's never enough.
No.
It's never enough for the Jew haters, because
has someone else said that exact same thing, they would be celebrated. It would be, the next slogan for TPUSA.
I actually think that he is the bright future of the conservative movement. And if it's not him, and if it's Tucker, it's going to be the end of the conservative movement.
Agreed.
That's the bottom line.
They're going to end up being as loony as the left.
Yes, and also everything he said was fact, and nobody can argue with him. You know why? Because he's smarter than all these other idiots.
Yes.
Put him on a debate. Put him in a debate with Tucker Carlson. He'll eviscerate him. Fantastic hero, Emily. Tanya, dear.
My hero of the week is actually Bill Maher. It's funny that you brought up what happened with Dave Chappelle, but he has been calling this out for the last 2 years, if not more. And Bill is one of the few people that still remains a Democrat and is sticking to his moderate values, and who puts America first and recognizes that protecting Israel is very much in our best interest as Americans. He's always standing up for that. He's always in the corner of Jews. And I'm very, very grateful for him, because as someone who has always championed the left for so long, for him to stick with his principles. And he's being dragged on so many different sides. He was dragged when he went to visit Trump in the White House. And it's like, and that is how you're able to actually create meaningful discourse. So he's a hero for me for quite some time. So
we love him. It's the only thing that I can look forward to and not be worried and watch at the end of the day, have a little laugh, not feel depressed, is thank God somebody normal is left.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's he's really sticking with it, and also he brings in conservatives on his show like Charlie Kirk.
Exactly.
And they had very fruitful discussion. He's a well-known atheist, interviewing Charlie Kirk, who's a very religious guy. and with so much respect on both sides, actually. That was a beautiful thing to watch when that happened. But he's
also one of the only people who completely shut down Anna Kasparian.
Yes,
and she was very
really not
calm
that,
with him because
she doesn't like women.
She doesn't like you, Emily.
She doesn't like women. She screams.
Yeah, of course.
Well, my hero goes back, unfortunately, to that horrible, tragic attack, and he's an unsung hero, actually, who's fighting for his life. His name is Geffen Biton. He's an Israeli who moved to Australia a couple of years ago because he loved the nature of Australia. He showed up to the event at Bondi Beach after a beautiful hike in the Blue Mountains. He loved Australia, he loves nature, and he went to help Ahmed al-Ahmed. A lot has been made about his heroism, and he deserves all the accolades in the world for standing and taking the gun from the shooter. But there was a guy helping Ahmed al-Ahmed who nobody's talking about, and he's actually in a hospital fighting for his life, and I want everybody to give him a little prayer. And that is Geffen Biton, a young man, young Israeli, who was in Australia with such enthusiasm. Please, everyone, pray for his recovery and his health. Geffen Biton, an unsung hero of the Bondi Beach massacre. And with that, and with the prayer that we have, that our one hostage that is still in Gaza, Rangvili, comes home to his family for a dignified funeral. We pray for him too. And we hope to see you next week. And we pray that it's a better world next week. I think we'll keep on praying until things turn around. Thank you, Tanya, for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you all from Jerusalem.
And moving on, a delegation of American healthcare leaders traveled to Israel to witness something extraordinary, a healing nation. Organized by Israel Bonds, the mission took doctors inside Israel's hospitals, trauma units, and medical schools, revealing how care, innovation, and hope continue despite the challenges. Here's their story.
Last month, a group of healthcare leaders traveled to Israel on a delegation organized by Israel Bonds. They came to see firsthand Israel's medical institutions in the aftermath of the October 7th attacks, and to see how the country, even through war, continued to care for its citizens and even advance world-class medical practices.
This is my second delegation that I've led for Israel Bonds since October 7th. There was more hope than devastation this time.
The delegation visited some of the nation's most prominent medical centers, including Sheba and Soroka hospitals. There, delegates saw the country's trauma units in action, treating soldiers and civilians under extraordinary conditions. Their trip also showed the social side of Israel's story. Attendees volunteered at Leket Israel and visited Beit HaLochem, where injured veterans train, recover, and rebuild their lives.
Seeing the strength, seeing the bravery, seeing the belief in the Jewish people, the belief in the state of Israel from their young people, and their willingness to pay the ultimate sacrifice, their willingness to do what they have to do to keep their parents alive, to keep this country alive, has been very meaningful.
The delegates visited Israel's top medical schools to see how the next generation of physicians and researchers are being trained. Despite recent challenges, students and faculty alike remain optimistic and focused on shaping the future of global healthcare. It's a future that Israel Bonds wants to be a part of. Buying Israel Bonds is a way to both invest and support Israel.
Israel Bonds has been there for Israel. It's been the way for the Americans to be there for Israel since almost the beginning of the State of Israel.
By virtue of our purchase of Israel Bonds, we are showing that we are investing in Israel's growth as they take on their role as one of the greatest innovators in the world.
After some intense days on the ground, attendees returned home inspired. They left with a stronger connection to Israel and a deeper understanding of how Israel Bonds supports the country.
ILTV News, your source for Israel in English. Reporting from the ground where it happens, as it happens. An authentic, trusted voice in daily Israel news. Airing on 11 international TV channels and now launching a 24/7 Israeli news channel, reaching millions every month across all social platforms. Independent, real, powered by truth. We don't just report, we connect, thanks to a worldwide community that stands for truth. This is ILTV, your source for Israel in English.
Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Alec Pollard coming to you live from Israel with the top stories in the region. Reports from the U.S. indicate that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have agreed to a 2-month deadline for Hamas to disarm, agreeing on practical criteria for what disarmament means, and according to the report, one of those is the destruction of Hamas's extensive tunnel network under the Strip. In remarks given alongside Netanyahu on Monday night in Mar-a-Lago, Trump threatened that Hamas will have hell to pay if it does not disarm within a very short period. Asked about phase 2 of the ceasefire, Netanyahu further elaborated in this Fox News interview.
What has been so hard about getting to phase 2, which is of this peace plan, the Hamas disarmament, getting an international stabilization force on the ground in Gaza?
Well, one word, disarmament. Hamas committed to disarm. It's got still about 20,000 people with basically Kalashnikov rifles, which they use periodically to execute anyone who doesn't want the continuation of their tyranny. So they kill a lot of Palestinians who don't want them. And they have altogether 60,000 AK rifles. That's what disarmament means. Got to take all these rifles, take them away from them, and break up those terror tunnels that they have. Still hundreds of kilometers of terror tunnels. Hamas refuses to do it.
Do you think you'll get there? Do you think you'll get to phase 2, even though there's this unwillingness by Hamas to disarm?
Look, I think we have to give it a chance. There's an attempt to bring an international force. So far, it hasn't come to fruition, but we'll give it a chance because if it can be done, again, as the president and I have said, if it can be done the easy way, fine. And if not, it'll be done another way.
Israel is pushing back against Turkey's growing role in regional affairs, from Gaza to the Horn of Africa. Jerusalem asked the Trump administration to exclude Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan from a new international stabilization force that will help shape the future of Gaza, and to keep Turkey off the board of peace, a new international forum expected to oversee the next phase of the Gaza peace plan. At the same time, tensions between Israel and Turkey are rising on another front. Standing with the leader of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, Erdogan strongly condemned Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland to the north of Somalia as an independent state, calling the move illegal and accusing Israel of trying to destabilize the Horn of Africa and undermine Somalia's territorial integrity. Israeli President Isaac Herzog criticized the government on Tuesday for establishing a politically controlled probe into the October 7th, 2023 Hamas massacre, and reiterated his call for a state commission of inquiry into the failures surrounding the assault. Herzog said, first and foremost, we must conduct a full, thorough, and statesmanlike investigation in accordance with existing law, the law of commissions of inquiry, into the horrific disaster of October 7th and the failure and collapse of judgment that led to it. Successive polls findings that the majority of the public in Israel favors a state commission rather than a political probe. And less pain at the pumps. From tomorrow, the price of gas in Israel is dropping below 7 shekels per liter for the first time in 4 years. Israel's Fuel and Gas Administration announced that from the first day of the new year, the price of self-service 95-octane gasoline will fall to 6.85 shekels per liter, down 1/4 shekel from last month. Officials say the 11% reductions result from international gas prices, reduced demand, and a slight weakening of the US dollar. Gas is still not cheap in Israel, amounting to $7.19 per gallon. And Israel announced it will suspend and bar the operations of multiple international humanitarian organizations in Gaza starting on the first day of 2026. The new regulatory rules are intended to prevent terrorist exploitation of aid channels after dozens of groups failed to meet updated requirements to submit detailed information on staff, funding, and operations, conditions Israel says are necessary to safeguard humanitarian activities from abuse by terrorist elements. And that's all for this edition of ILTV on the Hour. You can scan the QR code on your screen to download the ILTV app for updates throughout the day. Thank you for watching.
Welcome back to Axis of Truth. I'm Emily Schrader, and today we're talking about what happens when a country confuses political correctness with public safety. And spoiler alert, it never ends well. In just a few minutes, we'll break down how Canada has gone from a safe and functioning democracy to a country where Jews are targeted, terror networks operate openly, and authorities seem to notice only after something goes very wrong. From ISIS plots to fire bombings to chants calling for intifada, this is not a series of isolated incidents. It's a pattern. And then I'll be joined by someone who has been warning about this for years, Golda Meir, a former Canadian MPP who fled the Islamic Republic of Iran and went on to become the first woman born in Iran elected to office in Canada. But first, let's talk about something else that happened this week. I want to talk about something that doesn't matter nearly as much as it should right now to far too many people, and that is the concepts of truth and moral clarity. Now, at the Turning Point USA conference this weekend, political pundit Ben Shapiro did something that far too few people with large platforms are willing to do anymore. He spoke the truth, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was unpopular, even when it meant calling out people on his own side from the very stage that they were about to speak from.
He knew that Nick Fuentes is an evil troll and that building him up is an act of moral imbecility. And that is precisely what Tucker Carlson did. He built Nick Fuentes up. And he ought to take responsibility for that, just as he ought to take responsibility for glazing pornographer and alleged sex trafficker Andrew Tate, or for mainstreaming fake historian and pseudo-Nazi apologist Daryl Cooper as America's best and most honest popular historian. Hosts are indeed responsible for the guests they choose and the questions they ask those guests. Emotive accusations, conspiracy theories, and just guessing questions, that's lazy and stupid and misleading. None of them are a substitute for truth. None of them are a substitute for evidence. So, when Candace Owens says, "I don't know, but I know," that is retarded. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Yes, cowardice.
In one speech, Ben tore apart Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and Nick Fuentes for their pathetic pandering to conspiracies and Jew hatred in recent years. He emphasized that if you have a platform, if you have a voice, you have an obligation to your audience to pursue the truth with evidence, not to feed them lies, not to flirt with conspiracies, not to sacrifice moral clarity for clicks and for clout. That is what accountability looks like in public figures. That is what having an ideology actually means. It means that you stand for something, even if and when it costs you. And it's a real shame to watch someone like Megyn Kelly repeatedly fail and refuse to condemn Jew hatred on the right. Silence isn't neutral, it enables. And it's deeply wrong that TPUSA continues to invite Tucker Carlson to events like AmFest, given his open betrayal of basic conservative values, including a commitment to truth and to Western liberal democracy. In fact, Qatar errand boy Tucker used his platform at AmFest to scold conservatives and accuse them of hating Muslims, even when no one present did such a thing or was even speaking about Muslims.
And what you're watching now, attacking millions of Americans because they're Muslims? It's disgusting. And I'm a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I know there's a lot of effort to claim I'm a secret jihadi. I'm not. You should not attack people on those grounds. And you're seeing it from Republicans. What the hell are you doing? What you're doing is trying to divide the country. And I've lived through 50 years of this crap. All these fake race wars that they're always promoting. Oh, go hate each other while we loot the treasury. That's exactly what's going on.
Now, outside of AmFest, we also have to talk about Candace Owens. After being criticized by Penn, she responded not with arguments, but with a bizarre Jew-hating rant, which has sort of become par for the course for Candace Owens, if we're being honest. But this one was next level.
You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud. You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them, that they have a right to lie to us, that they have a right to sue us and take everything that we have, that they have a right to deceive us, that they have a right to treat Charlie the way that he treated Charlie while he was alive. I implore you to wake up to these people who believe that they are contract lords. I challenge Black Americans to wake up to your true history, because your quarrel is not with white men, okay? Wake up to who publishes these books and keeps us warring with one another. Christians versus Christians, right? Christians versus Muslims. Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there, and you can find it.
She was promoting the book The Talmudic Jew by August Rohling, a 19th century Catholic polemicist whose work was exposed as fraudulent in his own lifetime. Now, Rohling could not read Talmudic Hebrew or Aramaic. His quotations were fabricated. His method was to strip context and to smear Judaism as a whole as morally corrupt. His book became a tool of racial anti-Semitism, later recycled by Nazis and other extremist movements. This guy literally inspired the Nazis with this work, and that's what Candace is using. Now, this isn't asking questions. This isn't even about Israel. It's about reviving a discredited Jew-hating framework that history has already judged and rejected. Candace, who is actually evil, because what she's doing is evil, is resurrecting Nazi ideas that have led directly to genocide and attempting to repackage them as brave truth-telling to a misled audience. And that is exactly what's happening on the Jew-hating right. Any and every social issue is being blamed on the Jews, thanks to a subverted narrative of perceived grievances being spoon-fed to American youth by dishonest actors like Tucker Carlson. It says to the American youth that if you aren't where you want to be, then it must be because of those Jews. Jews control the banks, the media, academia, government, everything. They must have far too much influence and must therefore be corrupt because they couldn't possibly be so successful of their own merit. They must be inherently evil. This is the ideology of a loser who blames others for their own failures, who refuses to take responsibility for their own future. And it is this loser ideology that is being repackaged by populist scumbags like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. It's old poison in new packaging in pursuit of lowering the guardrails of civilization and destroying the right and ultimately the United States from within. Ideology isn't a costume that you put on when it's convenient or to win elections. It's a set of values that binds you even when it may cost you friends or invitations or applause. It means saying no when the crowd is cheering for the wrong thing. It means drawing a line and refusing to cross it. And for those of us with platforms, with cameras and microphones and followers, this is the job. not to entertain lies, not to mainstream hatred, not to chase viral moments at the expense of truth, but to pursue the truth relentlessly, with evidence, with history, and with moral courage. Because when we fail to do that, when we stay silent or make excuses, we're not just failing Jews, we're failing our audiences, and we're failing the very civilization or civilizations that we claim to want to defend. Well, the last few weeks, we've done a lot of deep dives into subversion of the West, from Australia to South Africa to the UK and the United States. But one country that has been rapidly spiraling into Islamism that we haven't gotten into yet is Canada. Now, since October 7th, Canada has been one of the worst places to be Jewish. In fact, during my speaking tour there, I actually felt more in danger than I had in any other country except perhaps South Africa. Tragically, we saw this past week that Canada of today isn't the Canada that we knew just a few decades ago, thanks to unchecked immigration and lax enforcement of the law. Now, over this past weekend, Canadian police arrested 3 men in Toronto in connection with a series of alleged attempted kidnappings targeting young women. Now, police said that the suspects, who were named Walid Khan, Osman Azizov, and Fahad Sadat, were ideologically motivated, and searches uncovered firearms, ammunition, and high-capacity magazines, in addition to Islamic extremist materials. Surprise, surprise. In fact, at least one of the suspects has also been charged with terrorism-related offenses linked to ISIS after investigators discovered only now from seized materials that he was seeking to murder Jews and had previously donated to ISIS. Now, while it's clear that these men should be under arrest, and I'm glad they are, why are the police only discovering by chance that people like this are funding ISIS and plotting attacks against Jews? But it's not just about the Jews. Last year, asylum seekers in Canada, a father and son, were arrested for plotting an ISIS terror attack in Toronto. And a Pakistani man who entered Canada on a visa was arrested in Quebec for plotting an ISIS attack on New York City. There is a security crisis unfolding in all of Canada, but the Jewish community is once again target number one. Much of this, of course, is related to the fact that anti-Semitism has exploded to unprecedented levels. Anti-Semitic incidents in Canada rose from 2,769 in 2022 to nearly 5,800 in 2023, following October 7th. In 2024, that number climbed again to over 6,200 incidents, the highest total ever recorded in Canada. In Toronto alone, Jewish people accounted for 40% of all police-reported hate crimes last year. The violence hasn't been limited to vandalism or to online threats. In the past 2 years, Canada has seen firebombings and shootings at Jewish schools and synagogues in Montreal and Toronto, arson attacks on Jewish community buildings, and Jewish businesses targeted with graffiti and threats. Jewish parents are increasingly afraid to send their children to school. Canadian universities have also become flashpoints. Jewish students have been harassed, intimidated, and blocked from classrooms as radical Islamist camps and rallies have spread across campuses. Terrified of being dubbed Islamophobic, university administrations and the federal government have largely failed to intervene at all. Across the country, the government has also done nothing to stop the violent anti-Israel mobs from calling for the destruction of Israel, praising Hamas, or calling to globalize the Intifada for 2 years and counting. Canada has permitted its own territory to become a safe haven for extremist Islamist networks, including supporters and operatives linked to the IRGC. Despite years of warnings, the Canadian government has failed to fully crack down on the Islamic Republic's infrastructure operating inside of the country. And the result is a nation that is rapidly becoming less safe for Jews and for Canadians at large. Canada's political correctness and unchecked immigration have put all of Canada at risk, and the consequences are now playing out in real time. Now to our guest today, who actually hails from Canada, even if not originally, Goldy Ghamaari. Goldy and her family escaped a brutal totalitarian Islamic dictatorship in Iran in 1986, immigrating to Canada to start a new life in a free and secular country. A former international lawyer, Goldy became the first woman born in Iran to hold public office in Canada. And while in politics, she used her spare time using her platform as an elected official to raise awareness about human rights violations in Iran, as well as educating Canadians about the very real and serious threat of Islamic terrorism and anti-Semitism in Canada. Now, Goldie was also instrumental in the designation of the IRGC as a terror group by the Canadian government, a long-fought battle. And today she also hosts The Goldie Show, which you can watch on YouTube. Goldie, it's so great to have you on the show. I wanted to for a while. Now, we've seen a pattern of brazenly Islamist activity recently surging in Canada. We've seen pro-Hamas rallies in the aftermath of October 7th in Toronto and Montreal. We've seen open praise of terrorism. We've seen even Muslim prayer protests that they've held outside some of the churches in Ottawa. Now, based on your experience as both an Iranian woman and as an MPP, how organized is this movement and how deeply penetrated are Canada's institutions?
Well, I definitely think it's incredibly organized. I mean, even on October 7, 2023, when we were just hearing about the genocidal massacre happening by Hamas terrorists in Israel, there were already people in Canada who were going out into the streets. They were celebrating en masse. All of a sudden, all of these for Palestine accounts popped up all at the same time. Toronto for Palestine, St. Paul's for Palestine, like all of these various, groups and organizations all, popped up within the span of 24 hours. So I think it is definitely very, very coordinated, very organized. You can't get that many people to come out with supplies and signs and things like that on such short notice, and yet they were able to do so. And a lot of Canadian journalists have actually investigated, and they've found a lot of financial ties to groups that are linked to terrorism. For example, the Samidun network here in Canada.
Well, you actually mentioned some of the networks. I'm going to ask more about that in a bit. We know, on the one hand, that Qatar funds a lot of the Muslim Brotherhood-aligned organizations worldwide and in Canada. And some of those groups, as you mentioned, that organize these different October 7th, I would say, celebration rallies, as well as the anti-Israel protests, have ties to Muslim Brotherhood-linked networks. Do you see a lot of influence from Qatar on the ground in Canada shaping the political messaging, the activism that we see across communities and on campuses in Canada today? And is there even any discussion about banning the Muslim Brotherhood the same way that it started to be discussed in the United States?
Well, I definitely do see the influence from Qatar. I mean, Al Jazeera and AJ Plus, which are basically the mouthpieces for the Qatari government, they are predominant everywhere in Canadian society, unfortunately. And a lot of the messaging that's being pushed out by Al Jazeera, not just in English, but in Arabic as well, we're seeing that same messaging in Canada. So there's definitely an element of influence. I think Qatari money definitely needs to be explored. We already know that Qatar has invested over $6 billion in American universities and educational institutions. I would be very curious to know how much they've invested in Canada as well. And, I think something definitely needs to be done. I'm glad that politicians in the United States are waking up to the real threat of the Muslim Brotherhood. But I have a feeling that Canada is a little bit far behind. Politicians are afraid to speak up because those who do, those who call out Islamic terrorism, are labeled as Islamophobic by the National Council of Canadian Muslims. And by the way, National Council of Canadian Muslims used to be called CARE Canada. CARE Canada was an affiliate of CARE USA, which was the largest unindicted